And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Thursday, November 7th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me in studio is my co-host, my son, fellow investigator, Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to hear 3 hours of Doug and Joe. 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news and information that you need to hear, that we need to catch up on. We've actually had guests all week, and great guests, by the way, but we need to talk about some very important news. And as I like to say, you're listening to the only show where the news is presented to you in 3D. We look beyond the headlines, the bylines, the fog of disinformation, the noise of headlines, and bring you what is behind those headlines. For new listeners, and I printed out a list of new listeners. Let me just see something here. Just want to say hello to, among other people. I don't have the list, but I want to say hello.
That's what you were doing all day.
Yeah. Brad S., listening from Laguna Hills, California. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sending in, checking in with us. And the others, you know what? I had an odd day today, so I apologize. Anyway, for new listeners, we broadcast live each and every weekday from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Our home base on the Internet is HomelandSecurityUS.com. We're simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. What a great network. The Christians United Broadcasting Network, what a great network. There you can tune into us at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. You know, thanks. Just thank you for listening to us. Thank you for tuning into us. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being part of our extended family. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we're all in this together. Joe, we are. Come on. You know, we're all in this together.
Speak for yourself. You know, no. Yes, we are. And I want to say I talked with Greg Jackson today. He called me, and he had a great time on the show last night. We got a lot of positive feedback. It was a fantastic show. And he asked that I ask, he didn't ask me to ask the audience. I said I would. He did ask me to pray for his new book that's coming out, 40 Things to Teach Your Kids Before You Die, this simple American truths about life, family, and faith that the secular world won't teach them.
Oh, wow.
I have not read this book. I do have the rough draft here, and so do you now. But,
I know.
I'm real excited to get into this because it's a short book. But how important is a book like this in these times? 40 Things to Teach Your Kids Before You Die. American Truths About Life, Family, and Faith. And these are things that we hear in school.
Wrote that.
I told them, it's such a good title, and I hope it goes on the top of the New York Times bestseller list because these are things that are missing from our society, from the courtrooms, from the school houses, from the government buildings, from most buildings, the private buildings, houses. And children are now a lot of children and a lot of teenagers and people my age are so far gone because their parents didn't teach the kids anything. They were living their own lives, doing their own things, letting the children do whatever they want. And now we
raised you.
Well, I don't think so.
What we did was
It was rough. I mean, you were very strict, as it should be, and the more strict you were, the more clever I found ways to break rules and still do what I want. But I
got to tell you,
it all worked out for the best.
Parents out there, your kids think they're getting away with stuff. Okay, like Joe just said, the more strict you were, the more clever I was. And as parents, when to pick your battles and when not to. Joe, there were times that you thought you were too clever by half, and it was just a case.
I'm sure there was.
It was just a case of me deciding which battles to fight and which not to fight.
I can just see you sitting there saying, it's not worth it. I'll leave this one alone. But I mean, you were on me about the music I listened to, the people I hung out with.
That's right.
I mean, so what parents are supposed to do, and that's missing from today.
Let me tell you something. Parents today and parents, and if you're as old as I am or in my age group, which is in early 40s, no, not really. But if you have a son or daughter who's in their 30s or thereabouts, I'll say from 25 to 35, you went through that rap, MTV. Oh my goodness!
I used to hide cassette tapes outside so I could, on the way to school, grab them out of the bushes.
I know.
But I'm glad I got over all that, stupid stuff that I used to care about that is worthless. I had some downtime today. I had a doctor's appointment that actually I was there for I think 3.5 hours, and it was something like that. It was an incredible amount of time, but I might have even fallen asleep actually. Perhaps in the waiting room, and then in the other rooms, and but I was thinking about how it used to be. You've done this, and I don't mean to waste your time with nonsensical things, talking about nonsensical things, but if you think about how it used to be, if you think of the Andy Griffith show and apply it to today, boy, don't you find yourself longing for that? In a way, or for the polite conservative society, absolutely.
And
my wife says to me that I'm what does she call me? She says I'm like an old man. She says I'm too conservative because I don't like. There's just a lot of things. I'm different. I'm not, out there. I'm not, I don't know. There's things she does that will get on my nerves, and I'll say, and I'll ask her to stop or ask her why she's doing certain things, and she always says, you have an old soul. And it's not that I have an old soul, it's just that I was a troublemaker, and I've been around, and all those life experiences have taught me a lot, and that's why I wouldn't change the past, because it wouldn't be who I was today. Most of us wouldn't be who we were today if we didn't go through things that we went through.
And if I had another, if you were, I don't think I could physically, mentally, emotionally take it. I'd be more of a babbling idiot than I already am. It's just wow, raising children. For those of you listening who have children, whether they're in their teens or 12, 11, 10, man, I know. It's got to be tough. It's especially in this time. And
you know what I hear a lot about children these days? People who don't. I hear a lot of conversations of people who are thinking about having children but don't want to bring children into this world. And I know people who will not have children.
Now, to me, that's
the way the world is.
To me, folks, I don't know how you feel about that. When I hear a couple talk about that and say, I don't want to have a child, because who would want to bring a child into this world? To me, that's
somebody told me.
Right.
It was you or somebody else told me, well, in the end, you'll have a child when you go to heaven. You'll have that person there, and it's not like you're doing something destructive. You're doing what God told us to do, occupying. You're married, right. You're having children, you're raising a family. We need more people who are, that have the right line of biblical principles and biblical belief systems. We need as many of those people around as possible. And it would be a disservice not to have children.
Right. I believe that. I believe that if you get married and truly, Pat Campbell is a good friend of mine, KFAQ, Tulsa. and he's got eight children. When I say I think, I kid him a lot. I ask him if he's done yet. 8 natural biological children, and to me, that is giving of yourself. I mean, how much more of yourself can you possibly give his wife and himself, and raising the children to be responsible and good, very, very good, and assets to the family and to the I don't know. And they're very, very moral, very ethical, very very good people. I don't want to get personal, but I'm just saying it. Boy, to say no, I'm not going to bring a child into this world, to me is the epitome of selfishness and is not really being submissive to the word. That's beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about tonight. We've got a lot of news to get into, a lot of serious news. Joe, you did a great job in taking care of things, picking out the topics. I went through all the issues that you had pointed out here to me to take a look at. Every one of them is absolutely important.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
Because I think the we should talk about if you don't mind. Let's go out of order here. I think people, because I've been getting emails about this as well, about the meteor shower, the lights up, unless that screws up your... No.
That's actually what I had first on the list. We have reports from the LA+Times, reports from CBS. Meteor showers light up the western skies, or the night skies across the west. Also, here back from the LA+Times, bright lights in sky, probably meteors, Weather Service say. And then most importantly, out of these meteor headlines, more asteroid strikes are likely, scientists say. And I bought a local paper today because that was on the front page of the paper.
Right.
Scientists were wrong about meteors, expecting, more rocks to smash into Earth. But that's what they're saying. They say when an asteroid exploded over a Russian city in February, shattering windows for miles, injuring well over 1,000 people, experts said it was a very rare event, something that occurs every 100 to 200 years on average. But now, a team of scientists is suggesting that the Earth is vulnerable to too many of those Russian-sized space rocks than previously thought. In research being published Wednesday by the journal Nature, they estimate that such strikes could occur every decade or so. And I will tell you, I believe that they're going to start occurring much more frequently than that. We know that the United Nations sent out an asteroid diversion program.
Right.
And we know that the governments have been talking about this. Augusto Perez came on our show and talked about this. We've seen an increase in the amount of fireballs that is astounding. It is, this year with sinkholes and these fireballs in the sky, it has been absolutely crazy to see the amount of changes that are going on. And the United Nations adopted an asteroid defense plan.
Right.
It plans to set up an international asteroid warning group for nations to share important information about a potentially hazardous space rocks. If astronomers detect an asteroid that poses a threat to Earth, the UN's Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space will help coordinate a mission to launch a spacecraft to slam it into the object. And they say it will deflect it from its natural course and it will miss Earth.
What could possibly go wrong, folks?
Yeah. They say this is the next step to defending Earth against dangerous asteroids. There are up to 100 times more asteroids than we have found. There are about 1 million asteroids large enough to destroy New York City or larger. Our challenge is to find these asteroids before they find us. And they say that the United Nations is coordinating this defense system, testing out technologies, because there is an increase in these asteroids, and once again, science proves to be wrong. It's interesting how somebody worded it this way. Everybody says science is very precise and always accurate, but how come it changes so much if that's the case? Scientists believe one thing and it's the law or their gospel until they learn it's not the way they said it was and they find another way it is. And then that's the new gospel that they follow. Not very accurate.
Well, yeah. But I think we're also dealing with the timed release and a structured release of information. I don't think that they're giving us all the information that they know. And Stan alluded to this, I think, this past Tuesday. Are we seeing perhaps something that I believe they know a lot more than what they're saying, and there's something coming. There's something bigger coming. That's my belief, and they're withholding the information. But is this not what we were told to look for in the Bible? And when we talk about this, how could you not talk about the Bible in the context, or these asteroids in the Bible in the context of the Bible? I think we have to.
Absolutely.
And I do have photographs, by the way. I want to just say that. Let me just pull this back up here. Of course, folks, you know who you are, who have sent me photographs. I want to thank you for those photographs right now. The server, or the migration to a new server, is complete. I received confirmation of that at about noon this afternoon, my time. And I'll say that you should, ladies and gentlemen, have a quicker, signing on to HomelandSecurityUS.com will be much quicker. It won't hang up, and
it used to do that a lot. It used to lag,
right?
Which we never understood. I never understood why.
Well, apparently the databases were the databases were actually they had to be. I got to say this. There were different languages that were supposed to have been extracted from the databases through different upgrades. Those, every time it was extracted, 5 minutes later they would be back in, and it would cause conflicts. And I don't expect people to understand this. I barely understand it. But the bottom line is, thanks to Simon, and I want to publicly say thank you, Simon, from Nitro Host. That's been taken care of. So logging on will be a more pleasant experience. We are now working toward having the website more mobile friendly. And now, since that problem was taken care of, which plagued us for many months, we will now be able to put a lot more content up a lot quicker. And I'm looking forward to that. And I know I say that a lot, but it's now coming to fruition. So thank you, Simon Nitros. But I've got the photographs that you sent to me. And the other thing, too, we are in the process of attempting to get Maria Pope. Now, she appeared with Pastor Manning on Pastor Manning's report talking about Obama in Hawaii. I just want to verify a couple of things before we actually extend the invitation. But we'll be working on getting her on the program. If you haven't seen Pastor Manning's program, Pastor David Manning, it's the Manning Report, and the recent interview was with Maria Pope talking about her time with Barack Obama in Hawaii when he was in middle school, or high school, actually, junior high. And based on what she said, this is in complete conformance with him being, or at least his parents being, heavily involved with the CIA. That's all. We knew that too. We do have more, the better. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do have Obamacare news today. Obama apologized today. Personally apologizes to Americans who were losing their health plan. President Obama today, on Thursday, told Americans that he was sorry that they were losing their health insurance under Obamacare, despite his repeated assurances for more than 3 years that they could keep their coverage if they were pleased with it. I am sorry that they are finding themselves in this situation based on assurances they got from me, Obama told NBC News in an interview at the White House. We've got to work hard to make sure that they don't. that they know we hear them, and we are going to do everything we can to deal with folks who find themselves in tough positions as a consequence of this, said the president. Well, this is what you had planned all along. This was part of the agenda, part of the script. So there is no, this is a empty apology. Maybe he's saying sorry for the inconvenience, but as the one health insurance CEO said, this is a transition, not cancellation notices. And I'm going to play a quick clip here, and you're muted. Obamacare restrictions lead Brooklyn couple to consider divorce. This is very interesting, but a little misleading. They talk about it as like they're being forced to divorce when that's not the case. They're choosing to do so because of the thousands of dollars they will save, but the policy in Obamacare, it's basically an anti-marriage clause. If you're married and you live in the same house, you're going to pay thousands of dollars more than you would if you were not married and living together. Here's a clip.
From website crashes to long holds on calls, we've heard the issues with the unveiling of the Affordable Care Act.
But is the health care overhaul leading to the breakup of marriages? CBS 2's Don Champion spoke to a Brooklyn couple claiming that they may be forced to divorce to get health insurance.
We kissed on the beanbag chair.
Nona Willis Aronowitz and Aaron Casera's love affair began in 2008 at a party. A year later, it grew into a marriage at City Hall in Manhattan.
It was really sudden. It was basically because he needed health insurance and I had a job that would give that to him.
4 years later, there's now irony in the fact the couple could soon divorce for the same reason.
After Obamacare is rolled out, we realized that we would save several $1,000s if we got divorced.
Together, as only a family of two, the couple makes more than the $62,000 level to qualify for subsidies under Obamacare. But if they live together unmarried as individuals, they qualify for the subsidies and potentially could save hundreds of dollars a month.
It's really complicated. I mean, go on the website. You'll see what I mean.
Aronowitz, a freelance writer, and her husband, who works as a freelancer in the film industry, lost their health coverage recently when Aronowitz was laid off. Critics of the Affordable Care Act have called the pricey decision the couple faces the marriage penalty, but the income levels for subsidies were set by Congress.
I'm an educated, very well plugged in person, and I can't figure it out.
Aronowitz says she and her husband are deeply in love, but together were never the marrying type. Still, they say they're not taking the decision ahead of them lightly.
Is divorce really worth it, do you think?
In our case, it would be worth it. In other people's cases where marriage is...
All right, I'm going to stop that. But, they're not being forced to divorce. They're choosing to do so in order to save money. And in the clip there, they said they made over $62,000 a year, and they're going to save a few $1,000s a year. But me personally, if I was in that situation, I'm not going to get divorced to save a few $1,000s. That's ridiculous to me. But the clause does they would save money by not being married, but in my opinion, it would obviously, if you're going to get divorced on paper because you're going to save some money every year, you weren't really you didn't really care about marriage that much in the first place.
No, you're exactly right. Folks, nothing that is happening with Obamacare is an accident. The website, and see, this is what Greg Jackson talked about yesterday. This was planned from the very beginning, order out of chaos. And the quicker that everyone understands that, if you don't have the book Rules for Radicals, and I'm talking about the original, the original Rules for Radicals, you really should pick it up because that's the playbook of the enemy. Yeah, I'm talking about the one that has the dedication to Lucifer in it too.
Yeah, there's also Naomi Wolf wrote a book, 10 Steps to Totalitarianism.
Right.
And she says that as nightfall does not come at once, neither does oppression. And there's a quote, Justice William Douglas says, "It is in such a twilight that we all must be aware of change in the air, however slight, lest we become unwilling victims of the darkness." And it talks about the fascist shift, and it talks about the process of this shift, the process and the goal. The process being one, a slow threat and use of violence against an individual for the goal of an all submission to the state. mentality,
right.
And it goes on from there. But our system of government has shifted from what it has been founded on, and we see that the Constitution, we know that the Constitution was enacted to limit government.
Checks and balances.
Not people.
Right.
Now the government has become so tyrannical that it doesn't protect people's rights anymore, which is what the purpose is. It is encroaching on people's rights and basically shifted to protect government and the expansion of government. And that is not a republic. That is not a democracy. That is a totalitarian regime.
Exactly.
And to what you said, they know what they're doing. This is not an accident. And the other night you talked about how the president isn't stupid, and anybody who says so. This Jonah Goldberg in the paper today, he's an editor for the National Review Online,
right.
Says don't claim president as a master chess player. And it talks about how he says, everybody thinks Obama's 3 steps ahead. He says that Obama could walk through the Rose Garden, step on 3 rakes like Foghorn Leghorn,
right?
In the old Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah.
And the official line would be he meant to do that. But being 3 steps ahead, this guy's saying no. He's actually not bright. He doesn't know what he's doing. And nobody's seeing the truth because they don't want to admit they're suckered, and he has no idea what he's doing.
It's just not Obama. See, you can't look at it like it's just Obama.
Right.
It's Valerie Jarrett. It's the people that surround him that are lethal, in my view. Now, Obama could be very himself. He could be very uneducated. He could be very unstreetwise, which I doubt.
I doubt also, yeah.
Yeah, and he could very well be a mental klutz. But the people around him are the ones that we have to watch as well. It's just not Obama. If
he grew up with parents in the CIA, if he grew up having, he obviously was around Frank Marshall Davis. He was around Bill Ayers. These were educated people, educated in tactics of communism, of crony government, evil, oppressive government. He is not a stupid man, and what he is educated on are things and ways to destroy a free, or continue to destroy, as he is just following along after his predecessors. But he has ramped up, as we talk about, ramping up the oppression. And maybe it's not ramping up the oppression. Maybe this is, whoever was in office, this was the natural course of where events would have led.
You know what, Joe? I believe truly that he was groomed for this very, very point in the moment in time, as we all are. You listening to this program, Karen in Rome, God bless you for trying to, for putting the toothpicks in your eyelids and trying to stay awake and listen. But I believe, just as we were all born for this very moment in time, and we have a job to do, I believe that Obama was groomed and selected. Don't forget, at the Bilderberg meeting in Chantilly, Virginia, in 2008, when Hillary and Obama walked into that meeting and presented their cases individually, and the committees met, and out came Obama as the selection, for the Democratic nominee for president. I truly believe that he was groomed, and he was groomed from a very early age.
Imagine that, like a sports player, almost, only this is much different. Imagine growing up in that environment, being taught to be you're going to be in a role of authority, and taught how.
You might not even know it, though.
I don't know.
What you're saying is,
and obviously he went along with it. He didn't rebel against it. It's like say a kid's playing baseball and the father's hounding the kid, practicing
Think
night
Tiger
in the
Woods.
dark. Yeah, and the kid is going to rebel when he gets a chance and the freedom to do so. But obviously that wasn't the case, because we're seeing him go right along with what he was taught, with what the people who put him in power want, and whether that is something that he didn't plan on doing and found out he'd probably lose his life if he didn't. And so it's easier to go along to get along. or this is what he wants to do. Either way, it's just as bad for him to be doing this, or be the face of it at least. And there's no turning back from this. I mean, I don't know how much longer in life we have, or how much history we will have, let's say in 10 years, 20 years, if we're going to look back on this and say this is the face of the destruction of America. That technically won't be true, because this was in the process of being destroyed for 100 years now.
And this is something that when Greg Jackson was talking yesterday, I was thinking about. You know, we have an individual in the White House. There's no ifs about it. He was groomed to be there. If you look back at the relationship between Peter Geithner, Timothy Geithner's father, and Obama's mother, and you look at all of the red diaper baby, that whole environment.
What's the red diaper baby?
Oh, you know.
Communist?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. You know what that is. In fact, you've read it.
Well, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Phrase.
But this goes back to, as well, Douglas Vogt, and I really would urge everyone. In fact, I'll put something up on the website here in the next day or two. Douglas Vogt had filed an affidavit with a court, 2 affidavits actually, with the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington. This is back in the middle of October. He did this, and these affidavits were addressing the claims made by Obama and the supporters about the short and long firm birth certificates. They're forgeries. But if you look at the affidavit of Douglas Vogt, it's pretty revealing in and of itself. And it goes to, and people might say, well, geez, this is an unwinnable argument. It's a done deal. In fact, Joe and I, right before the show, were talking about this, and he said it's kind of an unwinnable argument, when people are beyond this, past this issue. But to me, this is a core issue, not just the birth certificate, but his allegiance to it's his allegiance to evil.
But I look at it as the example I gave when we were talking about this is in December of 2009, Obama broke the law by being a sitting president and sitting as the head of the UN Security Council, which violates the Logan Act. We can bring this up and talk about it all day.
Right.
It is a legitimate crime. He should be prosecuted for it. But will it ever happen? No.
Well, you've got violations of the Logan Act every day and every year with the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission. It's happening. It's almost as if the mob is running the country. Isn't that? I mean, can't people? But see, it's not just a Democrat or Republican thing, because George W. Bush, heavily involved, George Herbert Walker Bush. You go back all through the years, back into the early part of the 20th century, and that was kind of interesting. When I asked Greg Jackson, when did America start going off the rails? It was interesting. He gave the date back in the early 20th century with the establishment of the Federal Reserve. It's interesting how to look at that. But I think really, and then he. Moving forward, and folks, this I believe to be an extremely important aspect of things. This year being the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Kennedy, that was a coup, a very, very public coup. It was a shot in 1963, November of 1963. The CIA and criminal elements within the shadow government came after and took out the leader of this country. Now they're coming for us.
Now, wait a second.
Yes.
I watched Bill O'Reilly, so I have it on good authority that Lee Harvey Oswald was the only person involved. As we know, Bill O'Reilly was, 50 at the time. I think he was there, standing right next to the car. He knows what happened. Actually, I saw a clip today where he said he refused to watch Oliver Stone's movie. Called it a conspiracy theory and fiction,
I'm no Oliver Stone fan.
Many people, I mean, the majority of Americans, I saw a poll, I think last year, it was like 75-80% of Americans believe that JFK killing was a conspiracy. Not a conspiracy theory, but a conspiracy done by the CIA and what you were talking about, the shadow government. And to see the dinosaur carcasses on the media sit there and try to, you know, like Ann Coulter, that clip we played about Building 7,
right?
You know, marginalizing the CNN person from the TSA shootings. They believe in a New World Order conspiracy theory. Now, this conspiracy theory is of believing a secret group is taking over the government very far out there. Don't know where they get it from, but they're crazy for believing it. And, I mean, just the naive. They play naive. They play stupid, and maybe some of them are, but most of them do know, and they know that if they actually tell the truth to the people, they will no longer have a job reading from a teleprompter. They will be blacklisted from any. I mean, look at Ben Swan. He was on a local state news station, started telling the truth.
Right.
Became so popular so fast, the news station had to let him go because they didn't like that truth getting out there. He went independent, and I'm sure he's doing just as well for himself. But that's what happens. I mean, he became so popular just for telling the truth. And any news station, whether it be MSNBC, CNN, or Fox, if they started to tell the unbiased truth today, they would have the most viewers in 1 month. They'd have all the news viewers.
Yeah.
But that will never happen because
they're co-opted and it's a captured operation. They can't tell the truth, and it's unfortunate. Which I kind of think when we think about how we have risen from where we were to where we are today, it's not us, believe me. Well, you could tell. I mean, folks, you can tell it's not us. It's laughable to think that we would be able to garner that much, that large swath of listenership. It's people are hungry for the truth, and that's what they're tuning in for, is the truth. Ben Swan, and we went through the same thing too. We hit certain topics that were the third rail.
Yeah, I was kicked off Fox for telling the truth. Judge Napolitano was. Lou Dobbs was.
Lou Dobbs is. He's got my respect in a lot of cases for a lot of things he said and a lot of areas he's gone into. I'd just love to be able to talk to that man for a half hour about certain things. I think that'd be an interesting conversation. But nonetheless, it's wow. We are being lied to at every turn. But moving on, I apologize for sidelining or sidetracking the conversation.
That's okay. The show title is Divide and Conquer, and there is a war on Christianity that we talk about. I have a few sound clips, one from Rand Paul. He gave a speech today talking about the war on Christianity. But I want to play a 1 minute and 11-second clip here of Ed Schultz, Republicans hide behind plastic Jesus. Listen to this.
Love your tweets, love your questions, keep them coming. Love hearing from our viewers tonight in our Ask Ed Live segment. First question coming from Aria. What do Christian values mean to Republicans? Well, Christian values, not that there aren't Christian values, but when you put it to politicians and political operatives, it now becomes a crutch to justify anything they want in the political arena, connected to Scripture, and oftentimes they turn out to be totally hypocritical. So what do Christian values mean to Republicans? It's just a stepping stone, a footstool to get exactly what they want in the political arena. They hide behind their plastic Jesus quite often. Just look at some of the things that have been said on the House floor.
Order the latest block.
All right. It is a footstool, a stepping stool to further an agenda. And I'm sure at some level many politicians do use religion to further an agenda. But I don't believe that's the case for the majority. When you have people, and they're talking about, pro-life people, anti-abortion people. Okay, advocating for the stopping of abortions because of religious beliefs is not something that is being done to advance a political agenda. It is done to save lives for the true Christians that are advocating that. And to say, basically lump people in there saying they hide behind a plastic Jesus, which I'm not sure what he's saying there, except hiding behind a religion, using it as a crutch. But it's not advancing. If it does get something done in the political arena, so be it. That's where the change happens. But to say that it's a stepping stool, like they will use it to advance their ideals or ideology and then leave it once they get their way, is completely outrageous. And the original question is, what do Christian values mean to Republicans? The question should be, what are Christian values, and who has Christian values and sticks to them in the political world? That would have been a good question. Not what do Christian values mean to Republicans? What do Christian values mean to socialists? What do Christian values mean to Ed Schultz?
Thank you for saying that. It's not a Republican, Democrat, progressive. Well, it's not a Republican, Democrat issue.
No, not at all. And, some scripture here in Ezekiel chapter 5, the Lord says that he's going to bring judgment. He says, thus saith the Lord, this is Jerusalem, I have set it in the midst of the nations and the countries that are round about her. And she has changed my judgments into wickedness more than the nations, and my statutes more than the countries round about her. They refused my judgments and my statutes and have not walked in them. Therefore, saith the Lord God, because ye multiplied more than the nations that are round about you, and have not walked in my statutes, neither have kept my judgments, neither have done according to the judgments of the nations that are round about you. Therefore, saith the Lord, behold, even I am against thee, and will execute judgments in the midst of thee, in the sight of the nations. And I will do that which I have not done and will not do any more, because of all the abominations. And we know that in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, it talks about, walking after, casting away imaginations of men and imaginations and of everything that exalteth itself above the Lord. Men doing what Greg Jackson talked about yesterday, not building on the precepts of the Lord, but building on beliefs, structures that men have created and implemented. This is how we have came so far out of left field, because we are not, as a nation, as a people, embracing God's principles, Christian principles. We are embracing many people are embracing a quasi-Christian principle based on the teachings from other men. In Jeremiah it says, but they have walked after their own imagination of their own heart. Therefore, I will feed them, this people, wormwood, and give them water of the gall to drink. Because they bow for lies, they are valiant for the truth. Upon the earth they proceed from evil to evil, and they know not me. So here saying, the Lord's saying, because men don't walk after his voice, don't walk after his statutes, but instead their own imaginations of their own heart, he will bring judgment on the nations. And they bow for lies and are not valiant for the truth. Therefore, evil proceeds to evil.
You make some great scriptural references and connections. I just want to say this. Divide and conquer. What is Obama doing here? What is the Obama regime doing to the religious, to the Christians in this country? There's a war against Christianity. And I've got some revelations from, as I alluded to yesterday, I am putting together my final article about my final encounter with my DHS source. But think about this, in which he said, by the way, the war is a hot war against Christianity in this country. But think about this. Think about Barack Hussein Obama compiling this record of, what is his record of hostility to Christianity? It's unmatched by any other president in American history, by the way.
That speech he gave from, I think it was in 2009.
Cairo.
Where he said the Sermon on the Mount was the most radical speech ever.
Oh, okay, that was, okay, yeah.
That our own Defense Department wouldn't even survive its application, calling it the most radical speech ever. Going on an interview with George Stephanopoulos and saying John McCain certainly hasn't attacked my Muslim faith. And George Stephanopoulos says, Christian, you mean your Christian faith? And he says, oh, yes, my Christian faith.
Yeah.
I mean, but just that speech he gave in Cairo,
no, I don't
said it all.
Yeah, I don't think the Cairo speech was the one you're referring to. I think I misspoke there.
He says, which part of Scripture will guide our public policy? Leviticus, where, it says to be stoned for eating shellfish, or, Deuteronomy that says having slaves is okay, or, the Sermon on the Mount, which is the most radical speech, ever. I mean, that is... I don't know. That is so anti-Christ-like, that mentality, that speech. A true Christian could never say that.
For the record, and I've been getting emails about this, I personally do not believe Obama is the Antichrist. I do not believe that, not even close. I do believe that he has the spirit of the Antichrist in him, and I believe that he's the precursor for laying the groundwork for the Antichrist system, but I don't believe he's the Antichrist.
We're told that there's many Antichrists, and there will be many Antichrists until the final son of perdition comes on the world stage.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, think about this. Obama, he's America's most biblically hostile U.S. president. And look what he's doing right now to the military. As commander-in-chief of our military, he has unquestioned authority, and we can see what's taking place within our own military. You hear about the purges taking place. Well, there's another element to that as well. It's the Christians in the crosshairs in the military, and Obama wants to replace. Obama wants to take anyone who believes in God and country. Now, this is a formula that Obama wants to replace with an allegiance to the state in its progressive social engineering. And if you think about that, it's extremely true. Just to tell you very quickly about how Obama is so anti-Christian and what he's doing to the Christians. And the reason I bring this up is because it's the Christians first through various mechanisms. And then whatever, if you're listening to this program and you're not a Christian, then you're next. Or you're somewhere on that list. If you are a Jew, or if you are whatever you might be, you're on that list. But just so you understand how bad this is, one of Obama's first executive orders, and this is back in January of 2009, he gave taxpayer dollars to non-governmental organizations that perform abortions abroad. Now think about that. We are paying other countries to perform abortions. Did you know that? You might have heard that and kind of forgot about it. But think about the implications of that.
It's like the Federal Reserve loaning out, $29 trillion to foreign banks in 2008. It's not being done to help other nations and other banks.
That's correct.
It's not being done to help people who want abortions. It's being done as a satanic sacrifice, first and foremost, and secondly, for population control.
Well, and he framed this. See, he framed this, this being a shot across the bow of traditionally religious Americans. And
they're turning countries maybe that weren't pro-abortion, that weren't evil, into evil.
Well, he's made it a subsidized right, and even a taxpayer-financed universal right extending well beyond our borders by saying, okay, we're going to subsidize, or we're going to give you money, taxpayer dollars, for your various non-governmental organizations in whatever country you're in to perform abortions. And that's a big deal to me.
When are they going to start giving, tax refunds, extra subsidies or benefits to people who had abortions. You know, if you had an abortion this year, you get extra $500 on your income tax return. I mean, they're rewarding the evil. They're punishing the good and the righteous.
That's right.
They're destroying morality. They have destroyed morality, and we as a people have let it happen and are just as guilty because we were asleep at the wheel and did not hold ourselves nor our leaders accountable.
Well, exactly. And as we were asleep at the wheel, think about this. In February of 2009, Obama announced his intention to eliminate the conscience protections designed to allow life nurses, doctors who work at federally funded hospitals to opt out of performing abortions, or any other practices for that matter that went against their Christian faith. It's hard to believe. It's difficult to even comprehend. The Obama regime is using the coercive power of the state to force medical personnel to perform acts they consider to be morally wrong and unhealthy for their patients. This
like
is
the
part of Obamacare.
Having churches saying you're going to marry gay couples, even though it's against your religious beliefs, and if you don't, you'll be sued, you'll be shut down.
Well, yeah.
But don't speak against it or Obama because you are, in MSNBC's words, embracing and engaging in Obama hate, which is now off the charts because he lied, but they didn't say he lied. But because people are angry and upset because he lied, they're saying that it is hate and racism. I do have a 2-minute clip here I'll play. But the reason that we play these clips is to give you an idea of the mindset of people out there, because what the news reports, there is a percentage of the population that doesn't look to fact check it. They don't know the truth. They absorb it and just assume it's the truth and repeat it to their friends, their families, whenever it comes up. And
Joe,
it's an epidemic in our country. I mean, it's true brainwashing.
If we are to fight this, we have to understand what the enemy is saying, know what the enemy is saying, tell you what they're saying, and how they're framing the argument. So, number one, you've got some good ammunition to talk with your friends about, and second, and the other reason is we need to prevail. So you've got to know what they're saying. But go ahead and play that 2-minute clip.
It's one thing to disagree with the president, but to treat him like he has cooties, like in high school, like you can't touch him, you can't be near him, you can't hug him. A guy said the other day from South Carolina, I was 10 feet from, that was this other guy from Benevento. I was 10 feet from him, and it made me sick. I looked him in the face, and it made me sick. You lie. This personal assault on the person of the president, as well as the office, is bad politics. What are you thinking? Is that part of the reason you had to make your move?
Lying is bad politics. Cutting people off from their, taking away jobs, taking and lying and saying you're doing the opposite, putting the country in huge deficits and then saying you're reducing it, telling people, taking away people's insurance and their ability to receive health care, and then saying, that's not what's happening. And then people speaking out against it are being called what Chris Matthews just said, attacking the president personally. Of course they are. They're not attacking him. They're attacking the lies that he is spewing. They're attacking his policies that he's implementing by these lies that he is feeding the people. Healthcare law was passed because of all the lies that he spewed about keeping the doctors, keeping the plans, having healthcare affordable. And we all know Nancy Pelosi. You have to pass the bill to know what's in it. They ran this thing down our throats with lies, with deception, and it wasn't, to help and better people, as we were saying. It was to advance their agenda. And if Mitt Romney was in office, it would have been him who passed it. If it was Hillary Clinton, it would have been her who passed it. It doesn't matter who the person was. The people would be in the same position no matter who it was. If it's Hillary Clinton who did the same exact thing, we'd be talking the same way. People would be talking the same way, coming after the lies the same way.
If this was George Bush, we'd be on this.
You'd be wearing a cheerleader outfit with a GW on it and have your pomp. I know you've changed.
It's amazing when you hit the wall and realize everything around you is a lie. The enormity of the lie is so hard to grasp, and then you start following the breadcrumbs. And I realize that people are at different levels of acceptance about this.
Think of this mentality, though. You hear what they say about the Tea Party. You know, the extremist, insane, hateful Tea Party. But Obama, they're basically saying, don't come after and expose Obama for his lies. It's hateful, it's racist. At the same time, they're creating false narratives, false labeling of people like Ted Cruz, and saying, you know, he is an extremist, a terrorist, a political anarchist, and the Tea Party is a movement of racism. Lying about that.
From their context, he is.
It's just so, and then to even think that people, more than 10 people watch the show on a daily basis or watch that network on a daily basis when what they're talking about has no basis in truth. It's like they're grabbing, you know, just I couldn't imagine doing a show where you take the truth and you twist it and you change it to lies intentionally and report it like that. I mean, that's what they do. And then they attack people, marginalize people who are exposing those lies.
Well, that comes down to how do they sleep at night.
And they have an audience. That's what
and they have an audience,
crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it is the audience is based on hope. This perverse hope of prevailing against or prevailing in the world, and it's the worldview that they hold. It's not the biblical worldview. It's a secular humanism worldview, because talk of Christianity makes them uncomfortable. I got to tell you this. I was earlier in the week, a radio station had asked me to come on, and I declined because they did not want any reference to Christianity. They didn't want any references to the biblical aspect of current events. And
should have agreed to go on and interjected that anyway. But
I would never do that. I would never do that because I wouldn't want to ambush. You know, I don't like being ambushed on air.
Well, I don't like being told what to talk about.
No, you know, but
what not to talk about.
But I'm glad they came out with that initially. The producer who called me.
Yeah, it could have been a mess if you went on air and you said something that wasn't on their do not say list, and you got attacked for it, or it got
it's
hostile.
But see, can you see, ladies and gentlemen, the camps that are forming, this line of divisiveness that is forming now? And let me just go through this real quick before the top of the hour here, because this has been set up. The war against Christians and the war against you listening to this program is hot. It's moving forward. My DHS source has said, just be prepared in the near future for some false flags that will identify these Christian, conservative, Bible-believing groups as being behind or being the proximate cause of what will happen next. And what is going to happen next, there's various plans in place, but it will be something pretty significant or a series of significant events. But if you look back at how this came to be, and I really think a kind of a recap is important here for the context. You know, back in April of 2009, just months after he was inaugurated, perhaps illegally, Obama delivered a speech at Georgetown. Well, missing from behind the school's podium as Obama spoke was the customary monogram symbolizing the name of Jesus Christ. Well, the reason for its absence, Obama, his aides, had put pressure on the school to conceal that religious image. Do you remember that? In the spring of that year as well, it was reported that Obama, his people, had insulted the Vatican. Now, regardless of what you think of the Vatican, And I know there are people out there who say the Vatican is part and parcel to this, bringing in the New World Order. I'll just say this: he insulted Bible-believing Catholics by giving out the names of 3 supporters of abortion rights as potential U.S. ambassadors to the Holy See. Remember that? Obama finally settled on Miguel Diaz. He was nominated back in May of 2009, and Diaz is known as a liberal Catholic with sympathies for liberation theology, which is opposed by the Vatican, who taught at St. John's University and the College of St. Benedict, among other schools. Now, he had served on Obama's sham Catholic Advisory Board during the 2008 campaign. He was one of 26 Catholics who signed a letter of support after Kathleen Sebelius, a dissident Catholic who asserts a right to abortion and contraception, was nominated to her current position. You've got to look at these in the context of the present day. In April of 2009, this is perhaps one of the most important things for everyone to really understand. Napolitano, the Secretary of DHS, had produced a report on right-wing extremism. Now, we hear about this all the time. It's talked about all the time, but do you know the history of this? One of the possible threats to America's national security is allegedly the potential for rampant pro-life terrorism, right-wing extremism in every form, in particular the Bible-believing Christian conservative base can be broadly divided into those groups, those movements, and adherents that are primarily hate-oriented. And this is what Matthews was talking about. That's why we played the Matthews clip, because what is being said here is that anyone involved in or anyone adhering to the belief that abortion is bad, that pro-life, being pro-life is where we need to be, anyone supporting the Christian, Judeo-Christian fabric upon which America was initially founded, going back to the Pilgrims, of course, then those are mainly anti-government terrorist organizations. They reject federal authority in favor of state or local authority. In other words, we, as a whole, and individually and collectively, we reject the consolidation of power that's taking place. We want the power back to the states, and that causes us to be termed as terrorists. That's the reason. If you look at what we're dealing with here, that's the reason. That's the backdrop in which we have to understand. It's important for us to understand why Obama is so anti-Christian, because the Christianity platform has connections to smaller government and in a tyranny. And this goes back to 2009. Well, the bottom line is by putting it on official-looking, by creating an official-looking report from DHS, where we're identified as a potential terrorist threat, it holds the weight, the authority, the ostensible authority of the federal government. And, of course, the report is a complete lie that pro-lifers like us, we're sowing violence rather than trying to stop it, that surgical abortion, by any rational definition, is the infliction of deadly force, of violence to prevent the birth of a baby. It would have made more sense, really, for Obama or for Napolitano to list Obama's abortion allies at Planned Parenthood as an extremist group, if you really want to know the truth. But and we can go on. In May of 2009, Obama dropped the practice of holding, you remember this, holding the National Day of Prayer at the White House. Okay, in keeping with his idea, his belief that religion is purely a private matter, he supposedly observed the day behind closed doors. Now, Gibbs back then, if you recall, he said, well, that's the way the president will publicly observe the National Prayer Day privately. He'll pray as he does every day. To which God, I ask, is he praying to? Is it the God of Moloch, Is it the Luciferian gods? And plural, small g, of course. I believe that to be the case. In the same month, Obama had just absolutely delighted these secularists by proposing a plan to phase out the DC's voucher program, which the vast majority of the beneficiaries of this voucher program went to Catholic schools, denying the children the chance to attend Catholic schools. Well, their parents couldn't otherwise afford. That was more important to Obama than offering them a greater educational opportunity. He's punishing the Christians in this case. Again, in that same month, if you look at his actions and how this is all building up to what we see today, he eliminated all funding for abstinence-only sex education. He put in its place tens of millions of dollars in funding for comprehensive sexual education. And there's this sickness that's involved in this perversity, and associated with the Satanist agenda is this perverse nature of his religious or anti-Christian stance. Because that same month, in May of 2009, does the name Kevin Jennings ring a bell to you? Well, he's the gay rights activist who condoned. Boy, I really always mispronounce this. I'm not going to pronounce the word. What it is he condones the homoerotic right of a adult male to have sex with underage males. Sorry for that graphic description, but I can't even pronounce the actual name of that. But Kevin Jennings, he put him in charge of the Department of Education's Office of Safe and Drug-Free Schools. Now think about that. Think about how twisted and how perverse that is. News of Jennings' views outraged religious parents across the country, but it didn't stop Obama from what he was doing. So if you look at the backdrop and how he has redefined marriage and continued to redefine marriage as his predecessors have, it really is a perversion. Now, one thing too, Joe, you played that clip, and I know we're late for the break, but you played that clip. In July of 2009, Obama extended federal benefits to the same-sex partners of government employees. If you think about that, included too were executive branch officials and foreign service officers abroad. That's an egregious violation of the law of the land, as was established by the Federal Defense of Marriage Act. So even back then, he stepped on the law, violated DOMA. At his inauguration, he promised to uphold all laws, but apparently he did not mean that he would uphold the Defense of Marriage Act, which was the law of the land at the time. So you could see right from the outset his intent to put Christians in the crosshairs, and in any group of people except Muslims. Now today we have Obamacare, which is forcing people to go against their conscience, and if you can't opt out because you have what they say you can, but you really can't opt out of Obamacare if you're conscious or if it violates your religious beliefs. Well, except if you're Muslim, then you can. Now, that's elevating one religious group over another, and of course, that speaks volumes about Obama. But if you look at the Obama's administration, his regime's use of taxpayer funds to impose the propaganda, for example, of Planned Parenthood, other pro-abortion groups on Kenyans. Think about that. Do you remember that? Back in 2010, the State Department pressed African the Kenyans to include reproductive rights in its new constitution. How in the world can this be where he's exporting this policy of homosexuality and abortion. It's hard to believe. And Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey, drawing upon a report by the U.S. Agency for International Development, which is USAID, he complained that more than $23 million in our money, your money, folks, taxpayer funds, had been spent on pushing this constitutional referendum just in Kenya alone. Do you see how the world is looking at America now, in particular, as this bankrupt, morally spiritual bankrupt nation? And Kenyans certainly didn't forget the insult of their distant kinsman's interference, because what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago, in May of 2012, Obama endorsed gay marriage. The Kenyan Council of Imams and Preachers launched a bitter attack on him. It's crazy. But you can see how our meddling, or the meddling of Obama, especially in Kenya and other third world countries, in the exportation of his anti-Christian crusade, is affecting all countries. It's just not America. By the way, and I'll just bring this up as an aside, and then we can go to break here. Reporters in October of 2010, by that time, reporters had begun to notice that Obama no longer included the phrase "their creator" in his use of quotations from the Declaration of Independence. Did you notice that, folks? The document says, if you look at the original document, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights," and I can go on. But on multiple occasions, he changed the line to read, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that each of us are endowed with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," taking out any reference to the word or the phrase "their Creator." It's not an accident, folks. Nothing we're seeing is an accident. This is all deliberate, and this is all an attack on the Christian faith, and this is all by design, including Obamacare, including and especially Obamacare, which will further assail your rights as a Christian. It's a war against Christians, and it's to divide this country, because you've got cheerleaders like Chris Matthews who are out there cheering him on.
Absolutely. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to hit a bunch of news. One, we have Department of Homeland Security testing facial recognition biometrics, rolling out their facial recognition programs, their iris programs, implementing the initial stages of this new program. Also, police stun stepdad trying to save son from a fire. They tasered him, and the son died. Also, Delaware spends $4 million on Obamacare enrollment to sign up 4 people. And we have news from the Hubble telescope. Hubble sees asteroid spouting 6 comet-like tails. Also, a Minneapolis school bus driver was fired for praying with passengers, and much more on the other side. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Thursday, November 7th, 2013. We'll be right back after these short messages. Do not go anywhere.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's canadafreepress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Ilana Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at canadafreepress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of when I say AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com? AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. What do you think of? You think of, oh, not again. He's gonna launch into this lengthy sales pitch for AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. You know what? It's really not a sales pitch as much as it is a plea from me, my heart, to you to get prepared. I don't know how much time we have. I don't know if we're going to be on the air 6 months from now. I don't know if, I hope we are in one form or another. We're going to talk until our last breath. But folks, it is time to prepare. And it is time to take stock of your inventory of preparations. Now, look, I understand. I completely understand. If money is tight, you're on a budget, you can't do everything. You're doing the best you can. But let me direct you to a specific area on AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Go to the store, click on the store tab, and then within the menu on the top, you'll see new products. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite, well, a couple of my favorites. For $10, you can get 4 packets of emergency drinking water. Now, I've got these. I also have bottled water, but I've got these because there's a 5-year shelf life with this emergency drinking water. They're pouches. They're only 40 cents each, or $10 for 25 pouches. Can't go wrong. These are under new products. The favorite of mine, of course, and I will say this, the reason it's a favorite of mine is because I know more people who have purchased this particular item to start their long-term food storage. It's a wonderful way to get started. Linden Farms is a 7-day emergency food pack, 20-year shelf life. All you do is add water. $90. It's well under even the Linden Farms sale price. They're actually undercutting their supplier. It's amazing to me. But with this, you get 90 full servings, 9 different meals to choose from, 2,000 calories a day for 1 week for one person. It comes in a 4-gallon, nice, rugged, stackable, easy-to-store container. And believe me, if you live in a townhouse, apartment complex, whatever, mobile home, so storage is a challenge. Finding storage is a challenge. I would recommend this in an instant. This is one of my favorite products of American Survival Wholesale. The beautiful part of this, of course, is listeners to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report will receive a $10 credit toward your next purchase. You will receive an email after your order has been placed. All you have to do is tell them you heard it on Hagmann and Hagmann. But $90 for a 7-day emergency food pack. That's doable. That's affordable. That's a dinner and a half out, or I don't know how many movies that is, but it's affordable. It's doable. I would urge everyone to grab a hold of at least one or more of those. Plus, it really comes down to $80 if you consider the $10 credit toward your next purchase. That's the Linden Farms 7-day emergency food pack, one of my favorite products of all. And, of course, the Hagmann and Hagmann just in case pack there, the outdoor oven and range. By the way, I've seen this, the outdoor oven and range by Camp Chef. It's a cooking and baking with propane. Now, I got to tell you, it's a phenomenal item. It's down there, kind of far down on the page, but it's a $300 item, but it's well worth it. And then, of course, you've got radios and you've got various one thing that really fascinated me, too, underground vaults for your weapons or for your valuables. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. If you've read different blogs, forums, people are beginning to store certain things underground. Well, they have underground vaults, 3 sizes in stock, starting at only $79. I've got to tell you, I've thought about this. I've thought about the practicality of it. It's AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What I'm going to do is give the show back to my dad for a minute. Then we're going to take a call, and we'll take calls in between news stories for the rest of the show. As it was already 9:20, we got about an hour and 40 minutes left, and you got some things you want to say.
Yeah, we want to hear what's on your mind, ladies and gentlemen. 661-244-9839. But let me just do this. Dawn K. She was kind enough to send a poem that her mother wrote, Bernadette. It's my mother's actually that was my mom's first name. She's a listener to the program, and asked us to Ms. Joe and I to read this poem, not on air, but to read it. But I'd like to read it on air because it's interesting and it's very good, I believe. And it's titled End+Times. It's brief, but it goes right to the...
It's excellent.
It kind of goes right to the heart of things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'll read it real quick here, and then I want to thank Bernadette and thank Dawn for bringing this to our attention. We ended last night. America is the Babylon. She really lost her charm, despised by many nations, inflicting deadly harm. Pollution in our skies above the contrails raining down. The lies of global warming in chemtrails we drown. The Russian troops are here to stay. Our vets are on the outs. Obamacare don't really care. The hope has turned to doubts. The gun at schools and kids abused. No God is welcomed here. Sure, it's okay. The Islam way, accepted out of fear. The killer cops shoot first and ask questions later. They still collect their pay. The lack of love grows greater. The NSA and TSA, they really have no shame. The CIA and Mind Control, it's all an evil game. The future of our country is pretty clear to see. The FEMA camps and coffins, they wait for you and me. The UFOs and aliens, you think that's all for fun? They're really demons. They're really demon spirits. You'll soon be on the run. And then we have the superstorms and weather, wars and HAARP, earthquakes in diverse places, the RFID mark. We will have 2 choices, which road you will take. Or which road will you take? The wise choice would be Jesus. It's just your soul at stake. And that's by Bernadette K. Thank you, Bernadette.
Beautiful.
And I apologize for not reading it well, but wow. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a phone call here from Moving Forward. We're coming to you now. Thanks for holding. What is on your mind tonight?
Hey, thanks, Doug Jr. and Sr. For taking my call from Just Me Moving. And what an awesome poem that was. Awesome.
It struck me. I mean, it resonated with me, and succinctly put everything in a nice package. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
What's up? What are you thinking about that? What's on your radar?
A lot of good news out there. I called into your show, a while ago. Nephew did excellent at the soccer game in the Nationals. It's not all bad out there in America.
Good. Yes. Good. Great. Great.
And I wanted to call in because I'm really thankful that that you have this venue and you're presenting, what's going on in America. Americana, all things American, right? And the good news out there is that I'm inspired by what's going on in your venue. I've been tuning in every night, and when I can't tune in, I'm tuning in the archives, and it's so inspiring that it's brought a lot of hope and things to a lot of my friends. So I wanted to call in and tell you guys about that.
We appreciate that more than you know, because on the flip side of that are people who will email us and say, hang it up. Resistance is futile, but it never is.
And thanks to the fantastic audience we have, it is so easy to do this job with such a great people out there behind you.
Yeah, so I was just trying to call in and get my plug in to say that I really look forward to your shows every night of the week and all your guests and everything they have to say. So God bless you guys, and thanks for letting me call in once again.
Oh, thank you for calling in, and thank you for your words of inspiration. Indeed, they're inspiration to us.
God bless you, too. You have a great
guys
night.
are awesome. Take care.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, we just do what we can do. That's the only thing. And resistance is futile is one of the things that they are making us believe. Once again, we get emails, so many emails saying, hang it up, it doesn't matter anymore. You're just wasting your breath. No, as long as we have breath, we're going to be talking about what needs to be talked about and giving out the truth. I wanted to mention this before I flip it back to you. I received a couple of emails asking me the gist of what my DHS insider had said. And once again, I'm struggling with this one aspect. Joe, I touched on this with you before the program because I wanted to get your take on whether I should even include this in this last final update from the DHS insider. And I'm just going to give it on air because I'm not sure. I'm preparing actually the final edits on this particular report because it's so important for people to understand what's coming. But what I'm conflicted about is whether to put this in the report itself. Because my DHS source even said to me, he said, look, I don't expect you or anyone else to believe me about what I'm about to tell you, but I don't care. I've got to tell you what I saw. And this is what he saw during the early morning hours of October 18th. That was the day that, I don't even know how you pronounce his first name, Johnson, the new DHS nominee, appeared with Obama. And he said, if you write this, you're going to be laughed at. People are going to be pointing at you, and they're going to be saying that, you're a kook and I'm a kook, and it's really, But if you don't write it, it's up to you. So, again, I'm conflicted because I'm looking at it and thinking, well, it's important, but will it nullify or will it affect the other information? Here's what my source told me. He said that he arrived at his office in DHS, and you've got to understand that it's a huge complex, early in the morning of October 18th. And he was trying to catch up on some paperwork. The issue was he had to retrieve a file from somewhere, and in so doing, he saw, we're talking early in the morning, well before office hours, but he saw an office with the door ajar and lights on, and he could tell that the office or the conference room, it was a conference room, he could tell it was occupied. And he said he walked down this hallway, and as he got close to this conference room, he looked in. just imagine the way it was described to me. Just imagine him being in the shadows of the hallway, and but as he looked into this conference room, he saw about a dozen pretty high-level DHS assets sitting around a conference table, and at the head of this conference table, or at the head of the conference table, there was a man. In front of him on the table was this very big, oversized book, and the way he described it to me, if you've ever gone to your local courthouse and pulled out the deed books and those old, bound books with deeds and public records, they weigh like 600 pounds. They're huge. They're oversized. Well, that was on the table. It was open in front of him. And he said it was open, and at first it appeared that a reading of sorts was taking place. Now, again, he was standing at a rather odd angle. He didn't want to move closer or try to get a better look because of it just kind of creeped him out. Well, he could see that they were holding, in his words, holding hands in a circle almost, as if it was like a prayer circle. But they weren't holding hands. They were, think of it this way, they were grasping each other's forearms, kind of like in a Masonic handshake almost, or a New World Order wink handshake. I don't even know how to describe it, nor did he. But their heads were bowed as if in prayer, and it sounded like they were praying together in a low voice, almost in unison. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but he said by far it was the oddest thing he had ever seen. He quickly and quietly retraced his steps to get out of there. And he said, look, I couldn't think of anything else the rest of the day, and it still bothers me. That's what he said. But he also said, maybe I'm overreacting. But he does have experience in occult-related crimes, as do many of the officers. And he said that's the first thing he thought of when he saw that it wasn't godly. It was more like something not right with this. Now, I pressed for more details, but my DHS source stated that the observation was brief, and he had really no intention of being discovered, so he didn't want to hang around. And he also said that he didn't see the normal tray of bagels or donuts and coffee on the table. And that's typical of office meetings, of course. He said, look, I don't know what I saw, except that I had a really bad feeling and still do about whatever was going on in there. So take it for what it's worth, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what he saw. He doesn't know what he saw, but it was certainly an interesting circumstance or an interesting event. And he was very concerned and is concerned that telling that story or writing that story, putting it in writing, would perhaps discredit the rest of the information because of his observations of that day. But let people believe what they will. He said, I'm just telling you what I saw, period, that's it. The whole thing could have been something completely harmless, but I wanted you to know. Joe? I was watching you, and I knew that you were...
your delivery and tone is so soothing. It just hypnotized me. I'm in a couple news pieces, then we're going to take some more calls. Police stun stepdad trying to save son from fire. Now, this is an insane story and sad story. The family of a 3-year-old killed in a northern Missouri house fire says it is outraged after the police used a stun gun on the boy's stepfather as he ran back in and saved the child. Riley Miller died early on October 31st in the Mississippi River town of Louisiana. A police officer fired his stun gun at Mr. Miller as he tried to re-enter his burning home, which was destroyed. Grandmother Lori Miller says she witnessed 2 officers use the stun gun 3 times, twice after Miller had been handcuffed. Miller suffered chest burns and was later released from jail without being charged. The family said is considering legal action against the city. One of the city administrators, Bob Jenny, called the police response a judgment call. But this child died, and would this man have been able to save the child? I'm not sure of that. Why were the police stun gunning the stepfather and not trying to save the child themselves? Why are the police turning from their job of protecting and helping people into now they are abusing and destroying people. I mean,
I can tell you
if you want
this.
to run back into a burning building, you're doing so at your own risk. Nobody was going to be hurt except the stepfather if things went bad. He was trying to save a life, and we're told from Scripture that if you lose your life for others, you will gain it. This is something, even whether this man did this because of his beliefs or on top of the fact that it was his stepson or not, that is a biblically correct thing to do. And the police, instead of helping the man, arrested him and stun-gunned him, which is just sickening. And it speaks to the way some of these police officers are overusing their authority and becoming criminals themselves, and it is sad. And another...
I just want to say this, Joe. They would never, if that were me, I'd still be in jail. They would never, they ought not to never let me out because, trust me.
The anger and rage,
yeah, you better keep me in jail for a long time because I'm coming after you.
And
sorry.
The family said they're considering legal action. They need to take that legal action, and more importantly, those officers who made that quote-unquote judgment call need to be prosecuted. I don't know what charges they could be prosecuted on, but
is there a stupidity?
No, it's worse than that. That would be interfering with the attempted rescue. I mean, it would be like clubbing a lifeguard in the head who was running out to the water to save a child. I know the person wasn't a firefighter, the dad wasn't a firefighter, but who cares? If my neighbor's house is on fire and there's somebody inside there, who knows? I mean, I'd do whatever I could to save the life possible, and I know many other people would do the same. And who's going to look at somebody and pull a taser gun out and stop that? At the worst, the thing the officers should have done, at the worst thing they should have done, would be to stand in the way or just restrain the person. But to taser him and handcuff him while his house is burning down and his child is dying?
But, Joe, I can tell you this. If it was my stepson, they would have to taser me and handcuff me because there's no way I'm going to let... Look, I understand, too, the burning building.
What kind of person would do that? What kind of person... How do you... And then you have... Obviously, it says more than one officer was involved. Wouldn't one officer see what the other officer is doing is wrong and say, stop that, let's help this person? Well, where's the mentality coming from that this person is, needing to be subdued with weapons for trying to save a life of a child?
Oh, okay. What's the story here, though, when we look at this? And I think the story is the use of the gratuitous use of force against people in general, and then you have this specific horrific situation. You're correct. At worst, they should have physically restrained them, not tased them. But and I'm sure their mentality was, look, we already have one victim in there. We don't want two. I understand that. I do understand that.
This was not an article, and somebody in the chat room named Hay says this. The child was found at his door, at the door to his room.
Right.
I don't know where that was located in the house, and I'm going to do some further looking into the story to see, get all the information I can to better understand the situation. But if I'm an officer and I'm there, I don't care if there's fire coming out of every open window and door. I'm not going to stop somebody from trying to do something to save a life.
When I was involved in EMS, we were taught a particular protocol called priority of life. And
I mean, if somebody wants to risk their life to save somebody else's life, I'm not going to get in the way of that. I don't care what. I don't care if I was the president of the universe.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who thinks when they see that somebody trying to go back in to save a child, who instinctively thinks to taser and subdue the person? I mean, how does that even enter your thought process?
Well,
was it they wanted to save his life, or was it you're not listening to me?
Again, that's the story. This is a very difficult discussion to have because we weren't there. We don't know, how big the conflagration was, whether the. But does it really matter? so we're looking at not necessarily the all of the circumstances, but the actual response by the police department, by the police officers, their mentality driving, or the actions driving that mentality, or the mentality driving their actions. And this is what we're seeing all over the country, all across the country, and this is directly due to the militarization and the training that is being given to these officers. I could tell you this: 30 years ago, rushing into burning structures when people were rushing out. And if I was told, or if we were told at that time that there was somebody inside, because I was detached with the paramedic, detached with the rescue unit and the fire unit, so it was kind of a all in one. You were a fireman and a paramedic, and it was a rotation as well into dispatch. But in dispatch, you're told to vacate the house, even if, or you were told to instruct the person to vacate the house, regardless, and not to attempt to save others within certain parameters. I'm just kind of encapsulating this, but the big story here, I suppose, is the change of protocol and thought from what it was a few decades ago to what it is today. And I think that there's no justification for the actions against that father, to me.
Yeah, no, it's the mindset, I believe. How dare you usurp my authority and, do something that I told you not to do. But moving along from one tragic story to a sad story, Minneapolis school bus driver fired for praying with passengers. A pastor who works as a school bus driver during the week recently lost his job for praying with children who ride on his bus. George Nathaniel, 49, is the pastor of both the Elite Church of Firstborn and Grace Missionary Baptist Church in Minneapolis. He has worked for the Burnsville-Egan Savage School District for the past 2 years and was hired by the Durham School Services, which provides the drivers for the district. As Nathaniel is a Christian, he says he likes to give the opportunity for students to sing and pray to start off their day on a positive note. Now, when I was in school, prayer would have been a wonderful thing because most of the bus rides were full of swearing and, bad behavior, but he says that we start out with a song. He's told the Star Tribune. Then each person will pray if they want to pray. If they don't want to pray, they don't have to. Then I'll pray and ask them if they want to join me in prayer. Just give them something constructive and positive to go to school with. However, an unidentified individual recently complained about Nathaniel's prayers. Durham School Services issued him a warning and placed the pastor on a different route. Nonetheless, the situation did not deter Nathaniel. I let them know I am a pastor and I'm going to pray, he said. So when it was discovered that he was praying again with the children who rode his new route, he was terminated. There have been more complaints of religious material on the bus as well as other complaints regarding performance. A letter from his employer read, "In accordance with the previous final written warning you received, your employment is hereby terminated." But Nathaniel says that his termination is unjust. To fire a bus driver for praying for the safety of the children is wrong, he told the Star Tribune. He said that as a Christian, he doesn't feel that he needs to keep his faith in the closet. We got to get Christians to be able to be Christians and not to have to be closet Christians. Nathaniel told the publication, "You have something good, you are going to share it with somebody." Reaction to the firing has been mixed. The school was correct in their termination, as that man was forcing his opinion upon a group of children without the permission of their parents, wrote one commentator. He was hired to drive a school bus. His job requires him to see to their safety, not be a youth minister for his religion. And this mindset is why we are in such a deteriorated state of morality and values in this country. Another comment said this is not a violation of church and state because the bus company is a private employer, not the school system. Another said, can we say that the children is being abused because they are forced to learn about other religious views, including evolution, the Big Bang Theory, Muslims, Buddhists, Scientology, because it's part of the school curriculum, regardless of what the child's family religion is. Durham Services will not comment to reporters about the matter, but was advised that it does not have a policy in regard to prayer. So, the war on Christians, the attack of on people who are openly and boldly professing the Lord's word, sharing the good news of Jesus Christ with other people, being blacklisted, fired, terminated, put in jail, all over America in this constitutional republic of freedom that once was. It is sad to say the least. We're going to go to the phones.
Wait, before you go to the phone, I'm sorry. I always do this, but this is important. Steve Quayle sent this to me, and also Beata, thank you so much. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Business Insider just came out with this article, and I don't even know what to say, except that I just don't know what to say. You be the judge, folks. The best and worst ways to conduct executions. You're going to be hearing about this and seeing about this, I can promise you.
Yeah, who sits around and thinks about that?
Well, it says this: the recent shortage of execution drugs in America, oh, go figure, inspired Slate writer John Cruzel to suggest that the guillotine, whatever, may be more humane way to kill criminals than lethal injection cocktail. And it lists ranked from the worst to the best execution methods. How macabre is this? But the worst, of course, is the gas chamber, then followed by electrocution, and then the firing squad, hanging, to lethal injection, to finally the guillotine being the best, most effective way to execute criminals. And it works by cutting your head off, and was widely used during the French Revolution. By the way, it's never been used in America, but there are proponents now to bring this back. And as Slate's John Cruzel writes, the guillotine is pretty much the simplest, fastest, and most painless way to go.
What would you prefer if you were going to be killed? Would you prefer an injection? Would you prefer electrocution or beheading?
Really?
I'm just asking. I mean, if you had to choose, I mean, it's not something you think about.
I suppose just.
I mean, you're going to die.
Your question, lethal injection, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't. I don't know.
Beheading is a more biblical way to go, but really, same results.
But I suppose the story here, and thank you, Beata, and thank you, Steve, is the fact that this is a tool of propaganda now to make it more acceptable. So, you think about the FEMA camps, you think about all the rumors about these devices being in place. Well, perhaps they're not rumors after all. Perhaps that this is wow, this is a method to say, well, let's use this. Let's make this the acceptable way. It's the more humane way. And there's also, too, the ability to harvest one's organs. Think about that and all the ways they could frame it. Go ahead, Joe.
Organ harvesting is a big money business,
Yeah.
It's like China, killed the weak, the diseased, the handicapped for the highest bidder for the organs. It's just disgusting. Moving to the phones, we're going to go to 757. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, how you doing, Doug and Joe?
Very well. What's up?
Michael.
Very good. Hey, guys. I'm. Yes, this is me.
All right, Michael.
Good to hear from you. It's been a while.
Yes, it has.
Why?
I'm sure everybody's overwhelmed by the variety of news stories out there. Yes.
We're being inundated with a lot of distraction and deception through the headlines, and the focus, like Greg Jackson said yesterday, the focus right now, we're being made to focus on things that are diversionary in form and substance. So,
what do you see as
what's going on in your world?
Absolutely. Well, Doug, first of all, that's a very good quote, very good set of phrases there. Distraction. I guess one of the real issues with me concerning the people would be what they're not focusing on. One, titled Conflagration of Citizens is a very disturbing title, wouldn't you say? That in
conflagration. Wait a minute. What was the phrase?
Conflagration of citizens.
Okay. What does that mean, or what do you perceive that to mean?
Well, that's in fact something real. But I would say that we are looking at a corralling of citizens at the moment through two ways. Of course, your digital means and political standpoint, which by the way, everybody should think about something in particular concerning our government. There seems to be a pressure point building, and it's building fast. We can see this in the results of changes of guard and military, the transfer of key personnel and agencies. And a long time ago, I said prior to any plan taking place, they must get rid of the leaders, basically. Key personnel that many people won't know in the public's eye, though they are seeing the footprint of those being removed, and the numbers are probably below what's being reported, and I'm speaking of military officers and agency officers. So, having said that,
197 so far in 5 years. 197 military officers. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think what they're not saying is the severe pressure most of your senior grade officers are under right now concerning loyalty. Now, regardless of which direction our leadership goes, and I'm speaking in a political viewpoint, regardless of which direction it goes, the outcome is still the same. Take, for instance, if let's just say by some sort of miracle, Obama is removed and or pressured enough to do the unthinkable, we still have to deal with the other portions and elements at play. In other words, if he's removed, it unlocks Pandora's box. It is by no means a solution because there are still other parties waiting to have their loyalists react. If he stays in office, obviously he's going to punch back at any opposition. This is what's going on right now. He's being pressed into a corner, and although it may be planned, the boiling point is about to hit. I would say that militaries are one phone call away from initiation of a few things, but the in regards to citizens, it just doesn't look good on either side.
Michael, stop for a second. Military, I want you to expand upon your meaning on that. Are you saying that the military is one phone call away from a coup?
Doug, the planning process of the current positioning of the military was a long and drawn-out process, very carefully done. And again, knowing the structure, only your senior officers are going to know what the actual div is. Those below those senior officers will know their respective parts, but they simply take orders to carry out orders. Are most of them patriots? Yes. Can a person be told to do something they have no idea of what they're doing or the outcome? Yes. How is this done? By breaking the communication from soldiers, from certain civilians that would divulge any information concerning civilian affairs. So, having said that, they are in position. They are in position. And
okay, I'm having a hard time. See, look, Michael. Here's my hard time. Here's the difficulty I'm having understanding this. If you've got all the flag corps officers, all the high-ranking military officers, are especially the ones that have been relieved, reassigned, or terminated, whatever you want to call it, from duty. Are you telling me out of the nearly 200 people in the last 5 years, we don't have a patriot among them who could stand up and say, hey, look, this is what the heck is going on. This is what I see. This is why I was removed from my office. Why aren't these people speaking out?
What could they say? Why could they? How, Doug? Think of this: if you're a senior grade officer and you're bound under certain oaths, right? And you have families, no doubt. You have families connected to families. How in the world can they say anything except to hope that someone notices something is wrong, that something is not right?
Wait, you might be bound by certain agreements or certain contractual obligations or certain oaths, but does not the oath to the Constitution trump all of that? At one point, if you are operating in an official capacity and you ask the question, is what I am doing constitutionally legal?
And your allegiance to the Lord, wouldn't that compel you also? One would think.
Well, you can do that. You have to understand the strain certain people are under. Listen, let's just say for a hardened soldier, it does no good going after that soldier, okay? But these guys will go after anything they can to suppress whatever that individual may divulge. You know, we talk about the game being dirty outside of the military service, but I do not suspect that people understand just how dirty the system is, because if they go after your children, if they go, I mean, they could put a little something sticky on your door handle, and all of a sudden somebody has a cancer or something of that nature. And this is a game that people are playing. Some of these officers, they know this. They know that they're not going to come after them. They're going to come after those connected to them. And so strategically to remove these guys, now, Doug, in answer to your first question, do we have some that do understand and are good guys? Yes. But they are hidden. They're not going to say too much because they can't. To give up their position now and to speak out would compromise their entire operation, their decision. And like I said, most of them are not concerned about their own positions. They're not concerned about their own positions. Yeah.
If they are working toward a specific goal and there's an operation in progress to expose the illegitimacy and the perversity and the entire satanic aspect of this regime, then I understand that. I'll give them a pass. But look, the clock is ticking. We don't have much time left.
I would say the hammer's falling right now. You know, I said this, the hammer's falling right now. I personally, the clock is ticking. I would say it's so close to 0 hour that the hammer has started to fall. People can notice these things, Doug. Listen. You have your leadership, your key figures of leadership being taken out of the way, replaced by loyalists. You're having agencies, one of whom that everybody has focused on, but is in fact their operational demands have shifted already to somebody else. And it just so happens, in a previous conversation a long time ago, I attempted to inform everybody that these things would take place around the happenings with the sun. These things are timed just right so that they can achieve a twofold agenda: one, to restructure things, and two, to get rid of people by having them in lawlessness. I think that's one thing nobody ever, I've not heard anybody hit on, but there will be lawlessness.
Well, I think we discuss that quite regularly, the chaos, the Civil War. I mean, I had written back in 2000, in May of, I don't know, a year or two ago, about the intent to cause this internal division, and the DHS was preparing for a civil war in FEMA and other organizations. And
what would be the goal, I would say the number one goal of a civil unrest? Would it be to let people wipe each other out? Would it be to create the culture of lawlessness so people are demanding order? Or is there other reasons why they would do this?
Well, I've said something a long time ago. what good would it do to kill a Christian? To just wipe him out just with a snap of a finger? What good would that do?
Right.
It works against their purpose, which is to control an individual. See, they want to control an individual. Those they deem not controllable, sure, they're going to wipe them out. Unfortunately, they're doing that already with the homeless and so forth, and other people that are going missing. But they want to possess the souls of people to function as one unit in a type of utopia, absent from previous religions and so forth. So it wouldn't do any good to do that. Now, they can pressure you into doing things, and they can certainly cause people to fall away from the faith, as they're doing right now. But they don't want to kill you outright. If that were so, they would have done that no problem a while ago. But they have their orders too. They're waiting, and I can say this for sure, that these things are forming around us. Doug and Joe, you're doing a wonderful job in areas that you wouldn't possibly imagine. You're causing confusion, a thorn in the side of some, and simply because of your information and your tenacity in disseminating that information.
My wife accuses me of that, by the way.
Well, bravo for that, because
sorry.
I don't think one thing people don't realize is that through dissemination of information, you actually save lives, because there have been several instances where the situation was so sensitive, and when you guys and others like you began to talk, they actually had to consider that their plans would be seen, and it wouldn't be received right. Now, don't make a mistake. They don't care who sees anything in operation. They have expendables, just like any other force does. But it takes the element, it takes the mystique out of the operation, which is what they're trying to keep. Because in all situations, they need it to be plausible. Now, that's something people should really, really think about. And this is why they come with a frontal assault with more than one story built in layers. Though they have one objective, they need it to be plausible. They need you to both believe it and to come up with an explanation, an alternative explanation as to how it happened. So if you want to know how they're working in these things, I just gave it to you. They need you to have it. They'll never do anything point blank, straight out. They will achieve their objectives if the Father doesn't get in the way, if the Lord doesn't get in the way. But it has to be plausible. It cannot be so direct that you can definitively say this is their fingerprint. They'll never do it that way. Never. Though they will. Go ahead, Doug.
No, I wanted to just say one thing that needs to be reiterated that's so important is what you said. We are fighting a battle for souls, and would they be more likely to get people to step out of the faith in comfortable living situation like we have now, or would that be easily more achievable in a situation of chaos where people would be doing things they would never do if life was, normal? And like you said, if they would just to kill off people as they could do right now, they would turn them into martyrs, where by keeping them alive and putting them in that position, they can take their soul away from them through the people's own, our own carnality and our own process, how that would go in a completely lawless situation. Yeah.
Doug, I got a question for you. Have you noticed that they will not ignite one's patriotism? Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that each time something is about to happen, and it builds up to a point where they can measure the patriotism of the public, they back off. Things begin to change. Headlines change. New stories form to distract from that previous whatever it was. Have you noticed that?
Can you give me an example?
Okay,
because
let's say this.
Go ahead.
If let me give you a scenario. If they did something, right, that would cause, let's say with Obama, if Obama changed a law directly, changed a constitutional amendment to void one's rights, if he did this viewable to the public without any covered paperwork, that would ignite patriotism all around the United States. At that point, it wouldn't matter what party you're in. They would see it as someone's attacking their freedom directly. Okay? It wouldn't have to be figured out. It would be determined easily.
All right.
Things like this they'll never do to ignite patriotism in the public, which goes back to why they keep things plausible. Because the fact is this, they have been waging a mental-type war. They have engaged people in this, the root of bickering, the small things, to make a person take a side. They have been doing this. Unknowingly to most, they have done it because they have ignited something called hatred, a deep-rooted hatred. And now the hatred is becoming so deep that people can't understand why they reacted the way they did. If you get into a conversation these days and you say the wrong thing, it's not like it used to be where you got angry. You could go home and get over it. But at this point, you're starting to see blood in your own eyes where you want to choke someone. And see, this is what's happening. This is the card they're going to play because they've already sent out all the commercials and media and stories and headlines that never came to fruition. And the one thing we hate most is something not coming true. We hate disinformation. We can't stand disinformation. So then they feed disinformation of something that could happen. And when it doesn't, it loses momentum. However, the sting of that story is still there in the individual. So all it needs to do is be ignited by another headline that does in fact come true. This is the point of, this is where we are. People are ready to boil their tops. The stories have piled up. Everything is stalled. Everything seems to be stalled. And they've done this on purpose to calm that boiling point so that they can release it. And people are falling for this every day because it's a very complex psychological operation. Very complex. And this is why you see something about to happen. There's no reason why it should not happen. And then all of a sudden a solution is found and it's put to rest. People are going to see this more and more and more.
All right. I'm just trying to wrap my brain around what you're saying here. Okay. What are you saying?
With the civil unrest, it fits right into the agenda, and it fits right into Scripture. Order out of chaos. To the point we have so much unrest that people are demanding order, only it will be what the Bible talks about, peace and safety, false peace and safety.
Well, okay, you made reference, Michael, to something earlier, okay, about, and let's focus on this because this I can actually relate to, about Obama, getting rid of him. When I say that, of course, to the Secret Service listening, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about whether it's through, legally, that is, through the legal channels or politically legal channels, whatever you want to call it. Personally, however, I believe an event is being fashioned to decapitate our government. I believe that, based on everything I've seen, I'm not a proponent of that because that would actually blow back into our faces. It would put on the fast track many of the policies that Obama stands for, put them on a fast track to completion. It would make a saint out of someone who is not, a martyr out of someone who should not be. So of course I would not be in the least for that. But I guess my question to you is this what you're talking about? Is this kind of what you inferred or implied earlier in the conversation?
Yeah, but with a factor of 5.
Okay, that I understand. And when you say that, you're talking about not only a head shot, but a head and shoulders and upper body shot, metaphorically speaking, a Dallas Dealey Plaza moment that would extend well beyond the the actual car, the Kennedy car. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I would say that. And I would also say that we are in a time period where dates are no longer important. When I said that the agencies and military are waiting for a phone call, I meant that. Because things could go one direction or the other. There are no dates anymore. Right now, it's a matter of when they determine it. You know, things are in place, just like next year, and they know they're doing this. But you'll see many leaders go to safety next year. That will begin in February of next year, 2014. You'll see many going to safety. And you have to ask yourself now, why? Now, a lot of people will say, well, they've been saying this and this and the other, which is true. But I think that everybody will soon see why. They will notice why. And it has to deal with, number one, our placement in the universe, what's going on outside the planet, and using that to actually make a plan come to fruition, because they have a deeper agenda. And I really wish that Steve Quayle would explain a few things concerning entities, because, you know what, to be frank, people are going to deal with things that they are not used to. There's
trust
nothing
me
that's
on
going to
that.
hold it back. Well, they are. They're going to deal with things they're not used to, and it's. I don't see a lot of people standing in this, except that they are well informed, like you're doing in Bravo again. But this civilian element, speaking of the people of the United States, I think that people need to really get a grip, really listen to your stories, your news broadcasts, and really consider, imagine themselves in that position and work it out now, because the time is coming. You know, we've talked about it for a long time, but it could literally be a day before something happens. I'm not saying it's going to be a day before something happens. I'm saying that we're one phone call away. One phone call away.
All right. And what would be the trigger event for that phone call?
I think the trigger is the first trigger would be a political trigger. I know for a fact, I can't say anything, but something is planned. Something horrific is planned. Really, there's no need to detail that out. Even if a person knew, there's no need. But a trigger is planned. And believe me when I say that, when this happens, there's going to be an immediate response. Immediate response. So,
yeah, if I think, if I'm reading you right, an immediate response would be required, given the magnitude of what I believe you're talking about.
And then you're looking at the multiple factors of we can only gauge something theoretically at this point of reactions based off data. But I believe those numbers will be ballooned far out of control, which still will serve the purpose. But even in the Bible, there's a disturbing scripture in there that says, nations in distress with perplexity. Not just nations in distress, but with perplexity. That means they're going to look at themselves and say, what actually happened here? Because the ultimate, the bottom line is that a person cannot be totally controlled. Certainly when chaos is involved, they can cause the chaos, but even biblically, they have not determined how far that chaos can go.
Let me run a scenario by you. And I want to get your, and ladies and gentlemen, this is something perhaps you might have heard about, perhaps in historical terms, but aren't familiar with. It's kind of like Paul Harvey, the other side, or the rest of the story. Glomar. the declassified history of the Glomar Explorer, the CIA.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that? I mean, we had a day. Okay, rather than play games, I'll just say this: based on credible information that I've got, there was a day, a moment, an hour, and even a few seconds on March 8th, 1968, that changed history forever, and people are not aware of this. And that was the Soviet sub sailing close to Hawaii that fired off a nuclear missile, a Soviet Gulf II submarine, the K-129, and people can look this up. By its pendant number, 722, it was carrying 3 SSN-4 SARC nuclear-armed ballistic missiles. It sailed from the Navy base from Russia, and it was on patrol near the northeast portion of Hawaii. On or about March 8th, 1968, that sub fired a nuclear-tipped missile. That missile happened to detonate or be exploded inside the tube of that submarine. The submarine actually sunk. Now, if people understand the history with the Glomar Explorer, well, let me go back to that submarine, the K-129. It was the plan at that time was to make it appear that China had launched a nuclear attack against the United States, not Russia, but China, when in fact Russia was the actual perpetrator. And you mentioned perplexity, you see, and this was the plan. Well, the Glomar, and the reason I mentioned Glomar was that was the ship that was built, the Glomar Explorer, specifically to bring up that submarine. And, of course, Howard Hughes was involved. In fact, I believe he underwrote the project of Project Azorian, the story of the Hughes Glomar Explorer. I mean, he underwrote the cost of that ship. So the reason I brought this up, that was a moment in time that changed history that no one knows about. And people might say, oh, that's just a bunch of gobbledygook. That never happened, but it did happen. And the creation of that ship, the Glomar Explorer, cost a ton of money, and it was specifically for one purpose and one purpose only. That was to bring up that submarine, and the whole thing was classified. So I guess what I'm saying, and the reason I brought this up was, are we talking a scenario like this in whatever level in today's world events?
Well, Doug, again, with a factor of 5, hear me out on this. Everybody knows that people know that China, they're very aware of China. They're not very aware of their capabilities. People are aware of the Koreas, collectively, both of them, and the small struggle over there. People are not aware of a submarine or a fish that was caught off the San Juan Islands. Events like that will eventually surface and be known as a malfunction of sorts or so forth. Stories like that, like the K-129, are stories that are in fact, a testament to what could be, that will likely be. Because, even now, the military is training for a world war, not simply a conflict, not a small defense strategy, but an actual global interaction with both offense and defense. Now, why would that be? We have most of our troops overseas. We just deployed some folks to Syria again. To Syria, ladies and gentlemen, we deployed some troops to Syria. And so that should really be a testament as to what likely will happen, because the one you don't count on as being the trigger for events after a main trigger is pulled, that's normally the one that you need to consider right now. Let's say this. Let's say in the political arena, the president is very pressured. He's very pressured, at which point he's not really going to call on the public at that point. And though these things may be contrived, each individual player has their role, though I'm telling you now, some people are not aware of the role they play in full. They are given a task. They are directed to do that task. They are selected for that reason. They are also selected for their lack of sensitivity, so to speak. So if he's pressed into a corner politically and he has to fight his way out, the cordial, the well-mannered individual that most people have seen will change right before their eyes, because at that point there will be a breakdown of the United States government. There will be stories of coups, as there are now. There will be stories of impeachment, as they are now. There will also be stories of one circumventing past authorities to save the United States. Now, that scenario is highly likely. And I hope that, Doug, you can actually dig something up on that. But for the survivability of this nation, policies are going to have to be kicked out of the window. They're going to have to be done away with. That's a scenario that will likely happen. Will it face opposition? Of course, it will. Will it be a short-term process? No. So people should settle in for a long, drawn-out ordeal, as they have been, but do not get wore out. And this is where the fight comes in. If you fight, then you fight to stand your ground and don't give up, because the worst thing you can ever do is give up. If you give up, all is lost. If the people give up, all is lost. If the government gives up, that's on them. But the people run this nation, not the government. What has happened is someone has convinced the people that they do not run this nation, and that's a lie. Very, very notable officials are terrified of the fact that if people actually do wake up, then they're in trouble. But the people run this nation. That message should really ring out. They've nullified everything. They've nullified the protests. They've become ineffective. They've nullified letters. They've nullified groups working together for a cause and effect. That's been nullified. And so now is the time for people to be of some type of one accord. Is there hope? Yes, there's always hope. There's always hope, but it depends on the people. And they have to conduct themselves as people, not animalistic behavior. This will play into the hands of those who are trying to dismantle this nation and a few others. Because if it goes their way, this nation will be...
Yeah. And we're never of the mindset, or certainly we're not proponents of any type of violence or violent overthrow or violent revolution. I mean, to talk like that is absurd. Simply, just from a logical standpoint, anyone who thinks that we have enough, or we have the ability to retake our government or our country by force, and again, this is an intellectual discussion for those listening, thinking that there's some sort of plot afoot. No, this is we're talking intellectually here about the state of affairs. I just want to make that clear. But for those people who think that a loosely formed militia could go to Washington, arrest the president, or do anything that would topple our leadership to retake the country, and I use that in quotes, are just fooling themselves. So therefore, it would stand to reason that regardless of what happens, we cannot be sucked into a fight that we cannot win, but we do have to stand our ground. That's not. I guess what I'm saying is we have to pick our battles. We have to stay viable, and we're not going to stay viable by going up against a drone or a SWAT team coming through your house. There's no way to fight that without the armor of God. And I don't want to go too far down that road, but you see what I'm saying. I mean, and I think that our government wants to put us into this us versus them mentality, and they thrive on that. They absolutely thrive on the chaos that they want, or they would expect, or that they would want to have happen. Isn't that kind of what you're saying? I mean, don't play into it, I guess, is what you're saying.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. Yeah, because the term fight is a very loose definition. It's not placed into the context of reality. And, so we're facing some situations that just have not been around before. But I'm saying there is hope. Now the question is, will people take the right steps to ensure things? Because here's the reality. There will be a separation of the United States in multiple quadrants, in a quadrant, so to speak. And so the next step will be, what will you do? What will you do? Because people, they're going to see the toxins in the northern hemisphere. They'll see this. I mean, we have Fukushima already. Nobody's really giving anyone the facts. All the equipment that's been put out now, the rad meters are not quite calibrated. Well, they're calibrated, but in favor of covering up the true spill itself. On the East Coast, we have issues with our nuclear power plants. The rad levels also are raising there, which some of that is due to the sun. And it's hard for most civilian scientists to get the right data because they've been effectively locked out of certain supercomputers that, in fact, get the real data from sensors. So they have to rely on putting the puzzle together from unclassified information, which is sometimes misleading, or it diminishes the true effect that's taking place. Those are some things we're looking at. The inbounds, over 3,600 inbounds, that's an approximation. That's not the actual number. It's probably higher. But we're looking at inbounds coming in, and it's a real culmination of events that will usually overwhelm an individual unless they are properly informed to say, hey, I need to keep this in my mind so that I can be sane when these times hit. Because they're coming, and the hammer is in the process of falling. I'm not going to say the hammer is going to fall. I'll say it's in the process of falling. It really is in the process of falling. Those things were on my mind, Doug, and I appreciate the time that you gave. But certainly keep doing what you're doing. You really have altered the course of certain things. You're like a tree, and you're having fruit in the minds of others who have changed their minds. These are controlling factions who have changed their minds. So, certainly.
Well, anytime we can, Michael, anytime we can be a fly in the ointment of the New World Order, Luciferian, satanic psychopaths, we consider it a good day. Anytime we could be a monkey wrench in the mechanics of things, we like that. And hopefully we're making a difference, and hopefully we're making a difference in ways that we don't even know. I mean, we just try to do what we are led to do. But we appreciate knowing that, Michael. Appreciate that very much.
As I said, we can only plant the seeds, and we got to let the Lord water them.
Yeah, and it's working. It's working, guys. And Doug, one more thing. Try and dig up something on England at the moment. In this window, try and dig up something on England.
Okay, I can do that.
Find.
Might like it, or might You mean
no,
like
you'll
it,
like
or?
it because it's certainly a puzzle piece. In fact, it's half of the puzzle. It's half the puzzle.
I do believe, and without adding mystique to the conversation here, I do believe that the UK, the City of London in particular, the royal family, the Buckingham Palace, the palaces there, if you're familiar with the star alignment with Regulus and other issues of late in the christening of sorry, I forgot his name, the offspring of William and Kate. I think that there's some interesting things there. Is this what you're referring to, or is it something different?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that, especially since there are, in fact, patches for U.S. military uniforms that pay tribute to that. So, yeah, dig into that. Find out some details on that, because it's,
okay.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah, somebody put a bug in my ear about this about 3 weeks ago, and I've been looking at this quietly behind the scenes, and it's not ready for prime time yet, but there is some smoke there, and I believe a fire. So thank you very much for that little piece of advice. Will do. God bless you, my friend.
Okay, guys. Okay, God bless you all.
All right.
Thanks, Michael, for calling. It's good to hear from you. Have a great one.
Don't be a stranger.
Okay,
all right. That was a great call. Lots of good information in there about, especially, talking about that unrest and we know the order out of chaos motto. We know that these things are coming, and the only thing we can do is prepare ourselves mentally and spiritually for them, because we're going to be put in situations where we've never been in before, nor do we want to act in a way that will endanger our soul. And in order to make sure that doesn't happen, we are going to have to mentally prepare for these situations. And it's not fun to think about, but it's something that we need to. We're going to hit some more phone calls here. We're going to go to area code 331 next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Thanks for holding. What's on your mind tonight? 331. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Did you fall asleep on us? Did you fall asleep on us? Come on.
All right, we'll come back to you. We're going to go to 626. 626, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, Doug and Joe, God bless you both, and greetings to you from the kooky streets of Pasadena. Gentlemen, I want to speak on my behalf, but I would hope on behalf of all the Hagmann and Hagmann family members, and I just want to say, before I make my comment, just a really sincere and heartfelt thank you for being the humble servants that you are, and for being the tenacious conduits that are, in fact, enabling what is happening, not just on an intellectual level of late, but really, gentlemen, on a spiritual level with this program, with this virtual living room that we all hang out in. So thank you both. And please be strong and keep up the good work.
Oh, yeah.
It's the least I can do. Gentlemen, I just two quick comments. And if I may, Doug, I'll start with just a quick comment on what you said, I believe, in the first hour about Rosebud's observations. And then I'll move quickly to the reason I called. So we just suffered through another All Hallows Eve here last weekend in L.A., and I noticed something different as I walked around the streets of my neighborhood this year, and I noticed just the genuine Luciferian decor that people are putting incredible amounts of money and incredible amounts of effort into. You know, these skeletal demonic beings hanging from trees and so forth. But my point, Doug, is that about 3 or 4 nights ago, I turned the corner on a fairly dark street, just 1 block off of the route that the Rose Bowl parade takes, in fact, and I stopped. And I had to look 2 or 3 times, because what I saw about 30, 40 feet ahead of me were 8 or 10 white-robed figures standing in a circle, and I kind of got scared for a second. Then as the breeze blew them, I realized that these were dummies. These were positioned as Halloween decor. But my point is that as I came closer to this person's front yard, what I saw, Doug, was sort of like spectral figures made of white sheets that were hanging from trees. They had heads, and they had some sort of arm appendages that were in fact clasping what would be the forearm areas of each other. They were positioned around in a large circle, probably 20 feet across. And in the middle of the circle was like a pyre of rocks. And on top of that, one of those large, big books that you were talking about. Like I knew right away when you said like a big, deeds and titles book, from 1940 type thing.
Wow.
So I just wanted to just mention that quickly. Maybe maybe it's not. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that to sort of bookend what you said, because I knew you were stumbling on it too. I did take a few pictures of it. But wait a second. They were in the street, or were they on the side of the road, or it was someone's front yard. It was someone's front yard, and they placed a couple of floodlights up in a tree so that the lights just illuminated the white sort of gown-like garb of these very well-made dummies. They had no faces. Okay. And they were in. They were figurines, or they were figurines, and they were life size. And like I said, when I first turned the corner, I got a little bit scared because I thought these were people standing in this front yard doing some strange ritual, at like 10 o'clock at night here in Pasadena. But the reason I even mention it on air is because they had built some sort of rock-like mound, and then in the middle of that was this big book, like something I would find in one of the prop houses. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that quickly. Thank you for that. If I may, well, you're very welcome. I could tell that you were kind of stumbling a little bit on whether you should share it with all of the Hagmann and Hagmann family. Gentlemen, the reason I'm calling tonight is just because over the past 9 days on this show, something unusual, I think, is really beginning to occur, and it's supernatural and it's glorious in the Holy Spirit. And I believe, gentlemen, that if a completely unaware individual tuned in Wednesday evening, 5 p.m. here on the West Coast, and listened to Paul McGuire all 3 hours, they then listened to Pastor David Langford and Steve Quayle on Thursday evening, were able to catch Maria later in the week, and then heard Greg Jackson, is it? What was the gentleman's name last night from CPAC? Jackson. Yeah, and then to hear, and this, this is the moderator of CPAC 2 years in a row, talking about our only hope being, of course, in our faith. I think that unaware individual could become fully aware in just the last 8 or 9 days of this show. And, gentlemen, I think that that's so important, because the last thing I want to say is just a quick sort of sit rep of what's going on here in L.A. As my emails have indicated, it's really getting scary around here. We are seeing canned military-style serialized Connex containers. They're staged everywhere. And generally speaking, in California, if it's construction-oriented, it has the name of the construction company as sort of a free billboard on the side of the containers. These are just anonymous containers. They're serialized, black stenciled, etc. We're also seeing almost daily the overflights of all manner of military helicopters. I've seen Army, Navy, Coast Guard, and then a whole bunch of them that are unmarked. And you've seen some of the pictures, Doug. And what I've noticed lately is the sort of interagency work that's going on with these helicopter overflights, because of late, either California Highway Patrol or LAPD has one or two of their birds in the air as well, and they fly big circles while the military flights typically traverse east to west. And I guess the last thing I'll say is just to leave the listeners with sort of a word image, if you will. I'm currently working at the old Desi Lou Studios where they filmed I Love Lucy, and they have huge billboard black and white photos of all the talent that work there. Hopalong Cassidy and Laurel and Hardy and Mae West, and they're all over the lot. It's kind of a neat little vintage appeal. And today what I saw, I think, really summed up what I want the listeners to know about Los Angeles. I was looking at the billboard of the Lone Ranger from the TV show from the 50s, and I heard the rotors, and I looked up and saw an overflight of what I believe were Army choppers, again, moving east to west. And I think that just sort of summarizes what's happening here in L.A., you know, where we've created illusion and entertainment for 100 years now. And I'm looking at the Lone Ranger, the ultimate good guy. And I look up in the sky, and there go those helicopters. And you know, they're scary to civilians. They're scary to me. So I just wanted to share that with you know,
that's an interesting. You know what? And I want people really to think about that. Here you are in amid these iconic, the photographs, the billboards, the bigger than life, the Lone Ranger, and then above that, you've got this military gunship that's passing over.
That's exactly what it was.
Wow. What you know, just folks, create that mental image or that image in your mind of that, and just think about the ramifications or the think about what the significance that holds, because I think you hit the nail right on the head with that. Wow.
Well, thank you, Doug, and to just say goodnight to all the Hagmann and Hagmann family members on an up note. I just want to reiterate, as I have many, many times on the air, folks, remember that fear and faith do not mix. I'm living and working in the midst of this right now, and the only reason I share it with the entire audience and all the Hagmann and Hagmann family is so that they will know in concrete terms that the things that are being discussed are not theoretical, they're not conspiratorial, they are just standard operations, and that's what's going on right now, and that's why it's so important that when Pastor David Langford and Steve Quayle and Paul McGuire, when they take time out of their schedules to be with us, man, get out your Bibles, get out a pen and paper, pay close attention, and bottom line, take it to the cross. Because I used to think, Doug and Joe, that we were just going to, like you said, traipse off to Washington and quote unquote take the country back. And the Lord has really shown me in the last year how foolish that notion is, and that we must rest in the shadow of the cross. That's our only mission at this point. And I guess I'll make that my final thought for tonight. But God bless you both, and thank you so much for what you're doing, man.
Thank you, and what a great final thought that is. God bless you, my friend. Stay safe out there. Thank you for those pictures. We're going to be putting them up, too. I just, you've got to see this, folks. You've got to see what's going on out there. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Doug,
you too, Joe. Anything that just helps folks understand. Anything at all. God bless. Bye-bye.
Right on. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Wow. It's just the symbology behind the image of the Lone Ranger in a military gunship. I can relate, I guess, being the age that I am, and of course the Lone Ranger being the ultimate good guy, and then seeing the well, enough said.
Let's move on to another call, as we have many on hold. We're not going to be able to get to everybody, but we're going to get to as many as possible.
Well, if we can do a lightning round.
Maybe 2 minutes for each call. We'll get through a lot of these. 303.
Yeah.
We're coming to you now. Thanks for your patience and holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, I think that's me.
Yeah.
Hi, Doug and Joe. You're like family to me.
You're like family to us.
Oh, well, thank you. My eyes were opened about a year ago, and I asked the Lord to lead me to all truth, and He led me to you guys. But I have called before, but I haven't got through. But I live in Inglewood, Colorado, and I did send you a letter but my message is kind of a sensitive note, but it's true. I know 100% that it's true. One of my friend's daughter, my best friend's daughter, was sent to Washington, D.C. to do training for a attack at Inglewood High School with the Swedish hospital. And this was supposed to be a hush-hush situation. None of the students were supposed to know at the school. And it was supposed to happen in November. I do not know if it'll come to be. I pray that it does not. But I thought maybe just getting the word out there, maybe that would, would make it not come true. Because my granddaughter goes to the junior high, which is in the high school right now. So.
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, I do have your letter. I remember reading it, and in fact, I've got it right over there, Joe, if you can see that there with the papers. It's in that box right there. That said, let's just go over this one more time. The situation at the Inglewood School. What is going to take place?
Well, the girl that was trained is no longer working there. I believe she was the dean. I never really talked that much to her, but my daughter's very good friends with her, and my daughter believed it was November, and the training had taken place at the end of the school year last year, so it was through the summer sometime that it took place, and I don't know if it's going to come to be, but I know 100% for sure it's true because I know.
Right. A training for a mass casualty event at Inglewood School.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I really don't have a lot to say. I just know 100% for sure it's true because my daughter was actually in D.C. at the time, and this girl stayed at her house. And so I got the information through my daughter, but I know 100% it's true that they were trained, and they were trained not to tell the students, and they said that it would be done with actual blood, and it was just it was really pretty horrific. And this girl, she's probably 34, I would say. She really kind of is blind, when it comes to Obama. She's just totally, I don't know how anybody can be blind, but she is. And she was kind of excited about doing this. So I just don't know what I can say about it other than I know for a fact that they did do the training.
Okay. And this is important, folks. This is important because a lot of these drills are not what they're intended to be. The purpose is something totally different. And, in fact, I think, I'm not going to say for certain, but I know that this deserves a response and some attention, folks. If you have heard of similar situations as this caller is describing, please let us know. We need to see where we're at here. That the hour is late. This is November 2013. Actually, we're almost we're a fourth of the way through. So, time is of the essence. But yes, your concerns are valid.
Okay, well, I just wanted to put it out there because I know you can't really put something out there unless it's firsthand with you, and it's firsthand with me, so I wanted to get it out there. And I know the Lord led me to you, so I know that you guys are a gift. And actually, I'm living in a house with, they're not really unbelievers, but they're definitely not awake. And I just don't have anybody except you guys and Quayle and Langford, and you guys are keeping me going because you're kind of my sanity in an insane world right now.
And believe it or not, you are ours as well, and that's why this synergy, this symbiotic relationship works well. Look, we all have families, friends, neighbors, people who are close to us that aren't getting it, that don't see. the only thing I would ask you to do is have patience and just always be there, because at one point they will turn to you and ask you what's going on.
Thank you.
Just remember that.
It really is. I love you guys. You are holding me together right now, and I just pray that you can stay on the air, because I do know things are getting really, really difficult.
Oh, yes, they are. Folks, you've got no idea. Well, thank you so much,
Absolutely.
my dear.
Yeah.
And,
God bless you.
You keep it together, and you stay close. We're all in this. You, me, Joe, all the listeners, we're all in this together. And we have to depend upon one another for our sanity, for our truth, for the truth, and for guidance, So appreciate that.
I'm glad you got through tonight.
I am too. Thank you so much for all you do.
All right. God
Thank
bless
you
so much. Wow.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Joe, I do. In fact, we went over that, but we'll talk off air about that.
Yeah. We're going to go now to, let's see, who's been on hold the longest here. 815, thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Doug. How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Very well.
A couple things on my radar that's scheduled for the next 6 days that I'd like to talk about. One of them is this power down grid exercise that's scheduled for the 13th and 14th next week. And another is a website that NASA, I guess, is promoting. I guess it's called Remember the 13th. And on this website, they're promoting some kind of like earth-shattering news that's going to come out on the 13th from NASA, some kind of like news release that's going to, like, remember the 13th, like we all know where we were on 9/11. It's going to be like that kind of shattering news where, wow, on the 13th, where were you when you found out NASA said this, And so
my question is, obviously, if they're going to be transmitting news, people are going to have power to receive the news.
Right.
Maybe
but
after
I figure they had these blackout, this Grid X2, it's just a drill. They're not saying that they're going to shut down, the grid, but these exercises, these drills go live all the time, as we all know, right? So as a possible scenario, let's say this earth-shattering news that NASA releases, this is just hypothetical scenario, by the way, that NASA releases on the 13th is like some kind of alien disclosure, let's say, okay?
Well,
and then it's followed by... go ahead.
Let me interrupt you just for a second, just to be clear. The website, and because I've looked into this, independent of Joe, the Remember the 13th is not affiliated with NASA. It is not. It has no connection to NASA. Just so you know that, okay?
Right. Okay.
And
so it is some psyop going on out there, obviously. Then, but
yeah,
I don't know who's behind it.
Well, who is reports that it's registered through Panama, and I've looked at this, and we haven't really talked about it. The actual ownership of the site is hidden via the anonymizing the service, and but NASA would never use a service like this, at least not. Well, I shouldn't say never, but it's unlikely. But I just wanted to throw that in there so people understand that this could very
it could be just an advertising where you sign up and then they tell you the news that you get shoes off for 50%. You're right, Doug. It could be.
Yeah, who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
Going to this scenario, let's say it is like breaks the news somehow, the media. This is just scenario, okay. Let's say some disturbing disclosure that is earth-shattering, and maybe it is a hoax, and they get people believe NASA is behind it, and then you get the media to jump on it with their disinformation campaign, and then followed by blackouts, so there is no more correct information going on, and then there's these meteor showers that are scheduled and stuff. And it could be just trying to recreate like a War of the Worlds scenario. Remember the old radios show that went on in the 60s that scared people's pants off about some, alien invasion.
That was in 1938, I believe, or 1939.
If
Orson
I can,
Welles.
real quick, when I was young, my dad one time played this video of an alien invasion, pretended it was real, scared the crap out of me when I was young. I never forgot that. It was pretty funny looking back.
If power does go down during all of this, the EBT card system will go down, right? And
That's
it could
right.
be, what if the prolonged blackout, where if they do go live and shut something down, that's what went wrong at Chernobyl. They were trying to power something down that led to that accident, And then meteors, and I don't know, it could be mass panic, riotings, and then they could, impose some alien savior somehow. I was listening to Steve Quayle on the deal last night, and, I wish, Doug, when you were saying to Michael about putting on the full armor that and you didn't want to go there, I kind of wish you did go there, because this war that's coming up, we all know it's a spiritual war. The guns will be good to defend yourself from raiders and robbers and do harm to your family, yes, but they're going to be pea shooters compared to if these, eddies or extra-dimensional dynamic entities, if they are coming, the only thing that is going to save you is the spiritual. They hate prayer. They hate God. They hate people with spirit. They're afraid of us, and they prey on our fears. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're 100%. Yeah,
no, they do prey on our fears, and one of the things we have to do is move out of that fear state, that fear mentality, and the way we do that is growing closer to the Lord and knowing that He is our guardian, and when we'll protect us and putting our trust in Him. And that doesn't have to be a process, but too many times with our humanness, it is.
Yeah. Amen, brother. All right. God bless you too.
You made some very great points. Thank you. God bless, and thanks for calling. Have a great night.
All right.
Wow.
Thank you.
Man. Joe, before the end of the program, I just want to remind listeners, November 15th and 16th, Occult and Satanic Crimes Conference. This is going to be held by, this is being presented by Russ Dizdar in Canton, Ohio.
Yeah, he'll be coming on our show Monday also.
Correct, and I just wanted to let people know, because there is a time limit here. The 15th and 16th, the Occult and Satanic Crimes Conference, Joe and I are going to be attending. If you register now, the cost is $110. For couples, it's $170. I believe, as it stands right now, that Joe and his wife, me, and my wife will be attending this seminar. It's a very important seminar on occult and satanic crimes given by Russ Dizdar, Canton, Ohio. Many terrific speakers, including Dr. Dale Griffiths, Dr. Carl Raschke, Tony Kail, and, of course, Russ Dizdar will be presenting. But if you are going to sign up, you're going to have to sign up pretty quickly, because the price does go up. I think it's after the 10th. So it's an investment. It's an investment the way we look at it.
And we'll be
putting something up on the website.
That Friday, we'll be hosting our show on the road. So we can report after the first day of the conference. We can report on how it is going, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to meeting Mr. Dizdar. Didn't know he lived so close, only a few hours away, and it's going to be very interesting learning and listening to the different speakers there about. And we found out some pretty interesting information about stuff around in our state.
Yeah, we did.
And looking forward to that. So Monday, Russ Dizdar will be on our show for the whole 3 hours. So you're not going to want to miss that. Put that in your calendar. And we'll be on the road on the Friday and Saturday is the conference in